Order, honorable members. I will ask the secretary to read the first order on the order paper. It's the motion in the name of the Chief Whip of the majority party, Honorable Tembu.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, we move that this House extends the deadline by which the ad hoc committee to identify suitable candidates for the filling of vacancies in the Commission for Gender Equality has to complete its task to the 28th of February 2019. I so move.
Order, I now put the motion. Are there any objections?
No objections, Chair, but we would like to make a declaration, please. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no objections, but there's a request for declaration. TA.
Madam House Chair, while we support the extension of the deadline, I must express the concern that this whole process has been done in such haste. We have known about the need for new commissioners to be appointed for how long? Now it is being rushed at the last minute, and it's part of this whole disorganization of Parliament where legislation and whatever is being pushed into a sausage machine. We cannot afford the luxury of looking the other way when it comes to the Commission for Gender Equality, one of the most important Chapter 9 organizations. While we support the changing of the date just to make it work, we cannot accept the fact that Parliament seems to pay little attention to the Commission of Gender Justice, in fact, in recently wanting to close it down. However, it should not have been left to the last minute by the OISD. It's important that we move with the utmost speed regarding the appointment, especially considering some positions are coming to an end in December. Looking at the high rates of femicide and gender-based violence in our countries, we need to make this a high priority for this Parliament. The total shutdown movement expects us to respond with urgency and empathy. They have been getting very demanding and very active. The plight of women and children is something that this government should be taking to heart. For how long have we been calling? Ever since I've been in this Parliament. And so far, very little has been done. The NGOs, SAPS and the Justice Department and government itself must take the plight of women and children into serious account. Our commissions are the most important institutions that they are, apart from the justice system and SAPS. We need these commissioners as of yesterday. Please, let's not undermine women and children. Let's give them the support they need. Human rights also are sadly neglected in this country. Our mothers, our daughters, our grandchildren cannot be left unsupported. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Are there any other requests for declarations? There are none. With those comments, indeed, I just want to concur with members that yesterday in the Chief Whips Forum, this matter was reflected upon, as well as in the NAPC this morning, and I'm sure such would not happen again. Therefore, no objections agreed to. We will now take the first and second orders together as they appear on the order paper. These are requests for approval by Parliament of international agreements in terms of Section 231, subsection 2 of the Constitution. Honourable Motapo.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. On behalf of Justice and Correctional Services Portfolio Committee, I hereby present these reports, which were unanimously adopted by the Portfolio Committee. I therefore present them to this Honorable House for approval of the ratification of the Extradition and Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters treaties between Republic of South Africa and the United Arab Emirates in terms of Section 232, in terms of 231 subsection 2 of the Constitution of South Africa. The Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, having considered the request that Parliament approves the ratification of the mutual legal of the extradition treaty between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the United Arab Emirates, which was duly signed on the 25th of September 2018 by the Minister of Justice and his counterparts in United Arab Emirates, recommends that the House approves the ratification of the treaty in terms of Section 231, subsection 2 of the Constitution. Must I also proceed with the second one?
The two are taken together.
Yes, thank you, Honorable House Chair. I move on to the second one, the report of our Committee of Justice and Correctional Service on the agreement between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the United Arab Emirates on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters, also signed on the 25th September 2018, tabled in terms of the same section 231, subsection 2 of the Constitution of 1996, dated 7 November 2018. The same applies as the same report was also adopted by the Portfolio Committee unanimously on the same date, and this serves as a proof that South Africa is an indication to the rest of the world that South Africa will not be a safe haven for criminals. It is therefore recommended that Parliament approve the ratification of the said treaties. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will present the two treaties one by one for purposes of adoption, even though they were tabled together. Are there any objections to the approval of the extradition treaty between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of United Arab Emirates as it appears in the order paper? No objections. Agreed to. A declaration has been requested. I now recognize Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you. Honourable members, international law is viewed as one of the pillars of our constitutional democracy. South Africa finds itself in a global world where crime has assumed an increasingly transnational character, with international criminal activity giving rise to institutions such as the International Criminal Court. South Africa participates in these in order to avoid the perception that our country is a safe haven for international criminals. And in this vein, we have continued to provide assistance with the investigation and prosecution of crime in the form of mutual legal assistance or extradition. This has naturally led to a body of jurisprudence on these issues that has shaped the law in this regard. With international crime on the increase, suppressing the commission of criminal activities while upholding the rights of offenders necessitated a legal process to acquire jurisdiction over such offenders. A decision whether or not to hand over the offender and the method used to hand the offender over lies in the hands of the requesting state, with procedures in place to deal with the handing over. The general basis of extradition is treaty, reciprocity, or comity. International comity are those actions between states based solely on goodwill and courtesy. The DA welcomes the signing of an extradition treaty with the United Arab Emirates. We know that several high-profile figures, and read here the Guptas, that have looted and plundered our country's fiscus have taken their refuge in the UAE. This treaty will ensure that there is now one less place for them and other criminals like them to hide from justice. Similarly, cross-border and international crimes have made it necessary to strengthen the methods of punishing offences committed on an international scale. Such crimes are notoriously difficult to investigate and prosecute. The suspect, the victim, the principal evidence, the principal witnesses and other experts, and the proceeds of crime do not normally fall under the authority of the country concerned. Transnational criminality has thrived with globalization, but national mechanisms for cooperation between states have not kept up. They lack cohesion and are often ineffective. Section 27 allows...
Honourable members, can you please converse a bit quietly? You are drowning the speaker on the podium. Order.
Section 27 also empowers the President to enter into any agreement with any foreign state for the provision of mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. South Africa is one of the 14 signatories to the Protocol on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters, and this calls upon member states to conclude protocols in areas of cooperation which include peace and security. This requires the widest possible measure of mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. It is quite worrying that there are reports that the UAE last week sent back South Africa's request for mutual legal assistance because it was not drafted according to the UAE's protocols. Such incidents must be avoided in future to allow South Africa to draw full advantage from this treaty in order to bring international criminals such as the Gupta family and their associates to a speedy justice. The DA welcomes the signing of this treaty of mutual legal assistance. It must be passed so that international criminals can be prosecuted to the full extent of the law and no safe havens remain for those fleeing from justice. I thank you.
Thank you. Order, honourable members. Honourable Mente, maybe before you speak, I would like to welcome our guests in the gallery who are here in South Africa attending the Advanced Leadership Academy here in Cape Town. These are representatives of faith-based communities from Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. You are most welcome. I also want to welcome other members who are also here. Unfortunately, I've not been informed from which institutions they come from. In terms of the rules of our parliament, you are not to participate in the debate that happens here or even clap if something is exciting. You can just watch and smile and appreciate the conversation of Parliament. Thank you very much. You are most welcome. Over to you, Honourable Mente.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The economic freedom fighters welcome both the extradition treaty as well as a treaty on mutual legal assistance on criminal matters between South Africa and the United Arab Emirates. This will pave the way forward for a tighter cooperation between these two countries to ensure that there is no haven for wanted criminals. These treaties come at a particularly important time for the rule of law in South Africa, where thugs are running amok, stealing and destroying institutions of democracy, and then running away to Dubai. We hope that as a matter of urgency, the government of the UAE will arrest the Gupta brothers, who are fugitives from the justice in South Africa, and send them back here so that they can answer for their crimes. We know that the Gupta brothers are watching this process closely and that they will surely want to elope from Dubai before this comes into effect. We therefore urge the government of the UAE to arrest those criminals immediately to ensure they do not escape. Together with their godfather Zuma, the Guptas and all those involved in the Zupta criminal network must be arrested and tried for taking our country for granted and for looting our state fiscus with their friends, some of them sitting here. Thank you very much.
Order, honourable member, the IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Agreements such as the two treaties we are dealing with today signal South Africa's growing return as an upstanding and responsible member of international community. It is therefore important that we work together as global community of nations in the fight against crime wherever it may be found, as each and every sovereign nation is vulnerable and reliant upon the good neighborliness of its fellow sovereign states to assist in the prosecution of crime committed in its boundaries. Global public security and the rule of law must be upheld, and this is where the importance of treaties such as Rome Statute of International Criminal Court Act becomes so relevant and important, as well as the above bilaterals, treaties as regards extradition and mutual legal assistance in respect of criminal matters. Grand corruption of the chairperson is at the heart of much of organized crime, and it is in this vein that while supporting the above two treaties, the IFP also calls for and support the repeat institution and establishment of specialized domestic, regional, and international anti-corruption court. Honorable Chair, there should be no place to hide for any criminal who has perpetrated crime in South Africa. The IFP support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. On the extradition treaty between South Africa and United Arab Emirates government, the NFP welcomes this treaty, which seeks to grant each party on this agreement the widest measures of mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. We have also noted that the parties shall provide, in accordance with the provisions of the treaty, mutual legal assistance to each other in respect of investigation, prosecution, and other proceedings related to criminal matters. According to Article 3 of the treaty, we note that this mutual legal assistance includes, among other things, providing documents or statements of persons, locating and identifying a person or items in question, measures to locate, restrain, and forfeit the proceeds of crime, transferring persons in custody for testimony or assist in investigation. The NFP supports the approval of this treaty on the basis that it will give more strength to the rule of law in this country on international legal systems. In our view, the treaty will assist to address frustrations when an individual commits crime in this country and then escape to the foreign country avoiding prosecution for such crimes. The good example here being Mr. Srini Diwani, a British national, who killed his wife while in honeymoon here in Cape Town. And it was a huge struggle and a huge financial cost to bring him back to South Africa to stand trial. These kinds of treaties must be encouraged to be concluded with other countries as well. The NFP supports this treaty since it is not in conflict with any law of the Republic and the Constitution, which is a supreme law of the land. We support the treaty and the report. Thank you.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, Chair. I join you, Chair, in welcoming the ALAC delegates today, and I have no doubt that their presence and prayers today in the House will result in a very peaceful sit-in today. Chair, the ACDP welcomes the signing and ratification of these two treaties with the UAE, and whilst they are not aimed at any individuals, they will pave the way for the forced return to South Africa of the Gupta family, who have been implicated in unprecedented state capture and corruption. And this has been the subject of various inquiries, including that of the Public Protector, Public Enterprises, ESCOM inquiry, and now the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. And as I've repeatedly said in this House, these inquiries do not and should not prevent or delay the institution of criminal and civil proceedings against those implicated, and in particular, the Guptas. There's also been nothing to prevent South Africa from requesting extradition of the Gupta brothers and their associates while the country is still processing the incorporation of these agreements into our domestic law. And we're fully aware, those of us that served on the ESCOM inquiry, that the Gupta brothers have shown nothing but contempt for various inquiries, and particular to this very Parliament during the ESCOM inquiry. Sadly, it has taken an inordinate long time for South Africa and the UAE to conclude these two agreements, with negotiations going back to 2002. During April 2016, when evidence about state capture was emerging, I raised my concerns in the Justice Portfolio Committee when we were discussing a double taxation agreement with the UAE. And I was then informed that there were a few technicalities outstanding on the extradition agreement and that it would be soon signed. However, we now see the delays that have taken place 2.5 years later. We are eventually ratifying those agreements. And whilst it is alleged that those delays came from the UAE side, in our view, there was not political will by the Zuma administration to sign those agreements. And this is not surprising, given the central role that former President Zuma and certain cabinet members played in facilitating state capture, which is, of course, the subject of these inquiries. Now, the treaties will enable the two countries to assist each other in investigation and prosecution of crimes through mutual legal assistance and the extradition of fugitives. It is very clear that the Guptas are fast running out of places to hide. We were briefed that the Hawks and prosecutors are already engaging the UAE counterparts. The ACDP looks forward to seeing the Gupta brothers and all associates appearing in South African courts on fraud and corruption charges, as well as the return of the looted billions of rands to South Africa. I thank you.
Order, Honourable Member, the ANC.
Thanks, Honourable House Chair, and good afternoon to honourable members. The African National Congress rises in support of the request for approval of the extradition treaty between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the United Arab Emirates, and the treaty on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters between the two countries, signed on the 25th of September 2018 in terms of Section 231, subsection 2 of the Constitution of 1996. Honourable House Chair, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Honourable Michael Masuta, signed the two treaties, the Extradition Treaty and Treaty on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters on September the 25th, 2018 in Abu Dhabi, after receiving authorization from His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa to do so on behalf of the government of South Africa. The extradition treaty reaffirms the parties concerned about the magnitude of acts of international terrorism and organized crime. Essentially, the state parties to the treaty agree to extradite each other's persons who have been charged for or convicted of an extraditable offense. These are offenses which are punishable under the laws of both parties by deprivation of liberty for a period of at least 1 year or for a more severe penalty. A treaty of this kind is one which is founded upon respect for territorial sovereignty. Honourable members, the Treaty on Mutual Legal Assistance desires to improve the effectiveness of both countries in the investigation, prosecution, and suppression of crime through cooperation and mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. The treaty was guided by the relations between the two countries and recognizing the need to facilitate the widest measures of mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. The treaty has a turnaround time of 3 months and will take effect once ratified. A treaty of this kind is one which is founded upon respect of territorial sovereignty. Honourable House Chair, both these treaties are in line with the African National Congress position of enhancing international relations and friendship, particularly because we have social and economic relations with the UAE. Amidst the aspersions cast and allegations by other parties that these treaties are as a result of the new administration, we wish to remind this House and the nation that bilateral agreements involve two states who need to reach consensus. There must be true meeting of the minds on all the material issues. Issues such as language translations and other technical details of the treaties needed to be agreed upon. Consensus has been reached. Therefore, this step is a culmination of an 8-year process which began with discussions between the two states in February 2010. So as the ANC, we categorically state that these treaties are in our interest and we request that this House approve it. So we want to also thank all the opposition party for unanimously agreeing with this report. And I've heard them, they have been supporting this report even here, except that they did not mention that they want to thank the ANC for championing these matters, because it is because of the ANC that this report served in the committee and that today we are serving this report in this House. So members, they just forgot to say that. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair.
Order. Order, honorable members. Thank you very much. As I indicated earlier, I was going to put the two treaties one by one. I put the first one, there was no adoption. Noted that as members were engaging in their presentation, they were actually talking to two reports. May I officially put the second one? Are there any objections to the approval of the treaty between the Republic of South Africa and the government of the United Arab Emirates on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters as it appears on the order paper? No objections agreed to.
Madam House Chairperson, in terms of Rule 162, may we please advise the last speaker that he can thank the DA for being here because you don't have a quorum today.
Order, honorable members. I think those discussions can happen elsewhere, but thank you very much. Can we move to the third order? The Secretary will read the third order of the day.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises.
I now recognize the Honorable, the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chair. We move that the report be adopted. Thank you very much.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? There are objections and there are requests for declaration. The Democratic Alliance?
Thank you. Honourable House Chair, the Department of Public Enterprises did not submit a request to National Treasury for rollover funds for the period 2017-18 to the 2018-2019 financial year. However, the department did request additional funding during the 2018 medium-term budget and the 2019 MTF for a capital injection of 1.74 billion and a staggering 21.7 billion and the 2.8 billion in respect of South African Express Airways, SSA and Denel respectively. SA Express has remained a financial nightmare and over the last 7 years has suffered extreme financial and operational challenges. The answer is not to throw money South Africa can little afford at the problem. It's time to find a buyer. Following over 13 failed turnaround attempts in as many years, SAA remains financially crippled and a massive drain on the national fiscus. Despite government providing SAA with a capital injection of 10 billion rand, the airline remains insolvent and has significant debt and liabilities that is unable to service. The answer is not to throw money South Africa can little afford at this problem. It's time to find a buyer. Denel has reported that the company is currently insolvent. The company has no cash resources to repay its outstanding debt. The answer is not to throw money South Africa can little afford at this problem. It's time to find another buyer. The Department of Public Enterprises cannot be used as a cash cow. South Africa can simply no longer afford it. Enough is enough, and the South African fiscus must be
Order,
protected.
honourable member,
Thank you.
your time is up. EFF.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All state-owned entities are collapsed by the ANC's incompetence. It was the ANC deployees that looted SOE's resources, and this started long before the Guptas. But we are made to believe that they are angels and saints, they are good and bad, and the rotten part is being cleaned out. The reality is that we are witnessing a consolidation of a parallel state network that is being created by Minister Pravin Gordhan. It started at SARS and was continued at National Treasury. Even when he was fired by the constitutional delinquent Jacob Zuma, he came here to Parliament as a backbencher to continue with that project. The removal of Siyabonga Gama from Transnet, especially after Transnet posted positive results and showed stability without following due process or fair labor practices, is Minister Pravin Gordhan's modus operandi. We knew about the corruption at Transnet, we exposed the rot of the locomotive procurement, and we even went to open a case at the Johannesburg police station. So people must not come here and say when we are exposing Minister Pravin's parallel state network that we are defending corruption, because when it was not popular to do so, we were exposing corruption. As a pure free market fundamentalist, Minister
Member,
Pravin...
can you take a seat? Honourable Minister.
The honourable member has, in your hearing, I don't think you need to see Hansard, made very, very serious allegations against a member of this House without any submission of a substantive motion. And I think this needs to be part of a substantive motion and not abuse of the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable member, in terms of Rule 85, as you know, you can't impugn on the character of the member, and if there are issues that you have, you can bring them in the substantive motion. I would ask you to withdraw. I'm not saying withdraw your whole... Order, honourable member, can I speak to the member?
But it's a generalization.
Order, honourable member.
It's a general statement.
Honourable member, can you take your seat? The honourable member specifically mentioned in a particular way directed to Minister Pravin Gordhan, and it is that I'm saying she must withdraw. Not her statement, but that section of her presentation.
Order, Speaker.
Order, yes, what's your point of order?
Speaker, is our EFF view that Mr. Gordhan is protecting certain faction within the ANC and is here to defend them.
Honourable
That's
member,
a view we hold. It's a political debate you are making.
I'm going to switch off your
mic. But we are making a debate.
On order, honourable member, I'm speaking to the member on the podium and asking her once again to withdraw that section that directly impugns on the character of the member. If she wants to bring a substantive motion, she can do so. Can you withdraw, honourable member, that section?
Honourable Chairperson, I'm not going to withdraw.
Can you then take your seat and leave the podium and leave the House? IFP. Honourable Member, what is your point of order?
Chairperson.
Yes.
You did not hear what the member was talking to. It's a general statement.
Order.
I would have preferred you to go and listen to the Hansard and made a ruling later, because it's a general statement that was made there.
Honourable.
And what has the Minister of State-Owned Enterprises have done?
Can I respond to you, honourable member, with due respect? I listened to the member, and in her statement, she specifically inferred on Minister Gordhan, on him running a parallel state on the side, and also, yes, she did. She did, and I asked her, that's why I said specifically I'm asking her to withdraw that part which impugned on the member, not her whole statement, and she refused. And in terms of Rule 85, as you know, you cannot infer on the character of a member without bringing it on a substantive motion. And I asked the member several times, and she said she's not withdrawing. She can excuse us in the House for today. Thank you. Order, honorable members. Order, Honorable Singh.
Point of order, Slana.
What is the point of order?
Kungiphatha kambi la ukuthi sebebanga umsindo kanjena nje ngalo Pravin wabo.
Can you please take a seat, honorable member?
Aye.
That's not a point of order. Honorable member, you can't use those gestures in the House. Otherwise, I will ask you to leave. Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. It's a lovely way of getting an afternoon off by saying something that I shouldn't be saying here. But having said that, Honorable Chairperson, you know, sometimes I wonder whether consideration... No, I can't hear myself.
Order, honorable members. Can you please allow those who are exiting the House to do so and allow the member to proceed with his statement? Can you proceed?
Yeah, Honorable Chairperson, they've got to adjust my time. Sometimes I wonder whether consideration of this BRRR reports is just going through the motions, ticking the box exercise, because legislation requires us to do so. And I'm saying that advisedly, Honorable Chairperson, because when you look at this report that we've compiled, which I agree with, we've got 22 recommendations here to the Minister of Public Enterprises. We've got about 10 recommendations to the Minister of Finance. In this report, there's a history of recommendations that were submitted in 2015, 2016, and 2017. How many of them have been acted upon? Virtually none. And the department comes along and says, well, we haven't done A, B, and C. So why are we doing this exercise? And yet, this Department of Public Enterprises is one of the most important departments when it comes to overseeing state-owned enterprises. And it's common knowledge that the corruption that has been exposed and continues to be exposed lies solely within these state-owned enterprises, where individuals and companies consider some of these state-owned enterprises as the automatic teller machines. Press a button even without a code and take away millions of rand. Now, if we are serious, this department really needs to step up its act in ensuring that there is adequate oversight over these SOEs. And I cannot say, Honorable Chairperson, in honesty, that they can say they will cover itself in glory in this regard. Let's look at SAA. Let's look at South African Express. Let's look at all the state, what's happening at Denel. The first port of call and responsibility for oversight lies with this department. That is why this department is created. Maybe in the future, and I've said it before, we must do away with this department and take all these state-owned enterprises and let them go back to departments that exist. But having said that, let's give the current minister and his new team a chance to try and correct the wrongs of the past. And hopefully, with new board appointments and better oversight, these state-owned enterprises can become developmental agencies for South Africans. I thank you. We support the report, Chair.
Thank you. NFP.
House Chairperson, it is clear that SOEs have become cash cows of certain individuals and those that are in the highest echelons of power. And of course, it seems corruption fraud is endemic in SOEs. And we want to give the Honorable Minister a breather so that he'll be able to turn it around with the appointment of members of certain boards of SOEs. We hope, but it has taken long for these SMEs to be turned around. And we find that there is no consequence management that is meted against those who commit fraud and corruption. And of course, there are billions of rand that have been pumped into SAA, as a press, but we seem not to be getting the results, no spin-offs. Why is it so? Now, having said that, there was a promise from the CEO of SAA that within 6 months would perhaps see a turnaround in the airline, but seemingly things are going on unabated. There is no change whatsoever. But having said earlier on, we need to give the minister a breather so that he's able to turn the SOEs around. SOEs are supposed to be creating jobs for our people, ensuring that it contributes to inclusive economic growth, but that has never been the case. The NFP will then call on the government to clean up the SOEs, and of course we also heard from the Minister of Finance that SOEs will be reconfigured. Perhaps we need to get the clarity of the explanation of the term reconfiguration. We'll await that as well. Having said that, Chairperson, the NFP will support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, UDM.
Thank you very much, House Chair and
Order,
honorable members.
honorable members.
Bayandihlukumeza, baxelele esi sithoko. Amasela.
Order, honorable members.
When the
It doesn't
robustly
make
developmental
two wrongs don't make a
role
right.
of state-owned enterprises was developed and implemented, it sought to
Order,
drive
honorable
industrialization and the racial transformation
Order,
of the
honorable
economy.
Kwankwa, can you take your seat?
Cela nibuyise ixesha lam ke,
Order,
2 minutes.
yes, we will do so. Can you take your seat? Honorable members,
I really.
can you please not use unparliamentary language? Whether you don't say Uyelo, you started, and that's why I had to caution you. And he responded, and that's why I had to talk to him that two wrongs can't make a right. Can we please be in order? Honorable member.
I'm rising on a rather different point.
Yes, honorable member.
Chairperson, the Honorable Kwankwa, from the podium, referred to you as Sistoko Batlelele. I thought we referred to each other as Honorable Chair or Honorable
Yes.
Members. Could we please, all of us, observe? Thank you.
Thank you, honorable
This is
member.
an African parliament, I beg to differ.
Honorable Nkwankwa, for
With
now,
respect.
we have
Oh, I
not,
beg you.
Honorable Nkwankwa, for now, we have not agreed that this is how we'll refer to each other in the House. We had in the rules agreed that if members don't feel comfortable by saying honorable, they will say Mr., Miss, or Mrs. Can we observe the protocols?
Mamutoko Ndiabulele.
Honorable
Honorable
Nkwankwa,
members, when
Honorable
the-
Nkwankwa,
Chini bawo.
Honorable
Ixesha lam
Nkwankwa,
lizawuthi
your
sisithoba.
time will be managed. Can you just please come
So
to
must
the
I withdraw
protocols?
Sisi and Mama, Sisi? I want
Just
to
say-
understand.
Just say House Chair.
I said House Chair.
Thank you very much. Proceed.
Ndiabulela Sisi, thank you very much.
On a
Honorable-
point of order, Chair.
What is the point of order, honorable member?
Chair, awukwazi ukhupha isiXhosa sethu eParliament, awukwazi.
Ngixelele.
Umama no Mrs yinto enye.
Honorable.
Usisi no Miss yinto enye.
Baxelele.
Ngoku uzokhupha isiXhosa sethu ufuna sikhumshe. Asiya
Honorable
ngathina
members.
kwezi zikolo zabalungu.
Honorable
Akhange singene
members.
kwezi zikolo zabelungu sisithoko.
Can you
Please,
take your
sincede
seat?
sisicinezela.
Can I
andivumi.
advise you? In our own languages, there is a word that refers to honorable member. You can say mhlonishwa, mhlonipheki, as I always do so from this podium. I have not, none of the presiding officers have actually used those languages. It is free for members of parliament, if they want those phrases to be used, to do so in the rules. There is a rules committee, and that is allowed. Order, honorable members. Can you proceed, honorable Nkwankwa?
Sisithoko ngunotshe.
Honorable
intombi
Nkwankwa.
emngcamgeni phansi.
Order, Chair.
Honorable Nkwankwa.
Order, Chair.
Honorable Nkwankwa, can we please proceed with the report that we're discussing properly?
Order,
Let's not
Chair.
just have spurious points of order.
Order, Chair.
I have made a ruling, and let's proceed. Honorable Khawula,
Order, Chair.
what's your point of order?
Chair, ingxaki yam, you are setting a precedent. We have been always refusing to call members of the ANC honorables. Instead of calling them honorables, we'll call them Mr. So when we say Mama, it's equal to say Mrs. So you are distorting the rules of parliament. So if I don't want to call him Mhlonipheki, dinelungelo lokuthi Mama.
Honorable
hayi sisi.
member.
You are distorting the rules of
Honorable
parliament.
member.
Please,
Honorable Khawula,
you must
can you
withdraw
take your
from the
seat?
chair.
Honorable members, I have advised order. Honorable Mantashe, I have advised that if members so wish to make amendments on our rule and be explicit, that can be done in the rules. And I don't think we should waste our time in that respect. Honorable
Chairperson.
No.
Honorable Chair, I'm addressing you in terms of Rule 92, Sub-Rule 11.
Yes.
Now, Sub-Rule 11 is very clear that once a ruling has been made by a presiding officer, it cannot be debated in the House. Now, members know what to do. So I'm saying they are continuously debating your ruling, which is in violation of the rules of this House. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable member,
Chair.
Honorable Mwabe, what's the point of order?
Chairperson, there is a precedent in this House that Umam Kaula has been called Umam Kaula even by the presiding officers. She has never contested that. If it's what you are saying is correct, it means Umam Kaula has never been honored in this House. I think your ruling is not consistent.
Thank you very much. Honorable member, for now, I've made the ruling. Let's proceed. As I've indicated, we will ask members of the different parties to address that issue, even the one of calling Honorable Kaula Mam Kaula. Can you proceed, Honorable member?
Honorable Chairperson. Honorable
Members, we have ruled on this matter. Why are we debating it?
Chairperson.
Yes.
I would like to make a request.
Yes, you can.
That instead of saying take this to the rules, that you go back and make a considered ruling, so that members can form a basis of how they will approach the Rules Committee. Because quite frankly, I do not believe that your ruling is correct. I'm not debating it, but I'm requesting that you come back to the House with a considered ruling, which we will use as a basis to approach. It would be unfortunate that Africa, must decolonize the education.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Nkwankwa, can you proceed?
Sis Toko, ixesha lam ndicela nililungise, please. When they assault mna ndiyenze loo nto sisingesiXhosa. Bentisixhosa sasemakhaya apha ngunotshe intombi kantoshe ingcamngeni phantsi kwentaba kandoda ndisungathi sisi. Soze. When the robustly developmental role of state-owned enterprises was developed and implemented, it sought to drive industrialization and the racial transformation of the economy while ensuring that SOEs remained financially stable. Fast forward to 2018, SOEs have become a major drain on the fiscus due to the corruption, mismanagement, and the ANC government's cavalier attitude to fiscal rectitude. Today, our SOEs require bailouts left, right, and center. I mean, if you look at our SOEs, most of them have been turned around several times over the past few years, but none of them have turned. In fact, you feel like they are moving around in a traffic circle. Look at SAA, for instance. How many times have we bailed out SAA? We continue to bail out SAA. From where we're sitting, SAA is beginning to rapidly look like a vanity project that the South African national government does not want to let go of. The fact of the matter is, if we don't deal with governance issues, make sure that there are consequences for people who run these SOEs to the ground, this problem is going to recur. It requires leadership. We're only supporting this report because some changes have been made, firstly at management and governance level, and want to see whether or not there'll be improvements in future. So we support this report grudgingly, because our changing in future.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time is up. The ACDP.
Sorry, Slab.
Order, Honourable Member, what's your point of order?
Ngiyabonga Slab. Uyazi khona into la engiyithandayo leyo kuhloniphana. But khona lana ukuthi lento engizofuna ukuthi ngelinye ilanga niyibheke. Uyabona la sibizana ngo-honorable, kuthiwa siyahloniphana. Kodwa mangabe sekukhona enye imember la ishonile, akukho la ikhonjibisa khona kuyihlonipha ukuthi beku-honorable, awuzwa kuthiwa ishonile aniyiboni nokuthi ingcwatshwe kanjani aniniki nalento ebizwa ngokuthi state funeral asifane manje why landlord ithi thina sihloniphekile kodwa anikwazi ukuyibheka lento kuyimazi nezimember la ishonile asitshelwanga sazi nokwazi ubona ngoba usuthola ishonile izinto afuna niyibheke zonke lezo manilungisa imithetho ngiyabonga.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member of the ACDP, can you proceed?
Thank you, Umama, House Chair. Is that permissible? Thank you, House Chair. Thank you. The ACDP shares concerns expressed in the report about the deplorable financial state of the SOEs, and as we know, that is a direct result of mismanagement, corruption, and state capture, with billions having been looted and stolen. And whilst commendable steps have been taken to improve governance and finances, clearly much more still needs to be done. And I do wish to commend the members of the Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee for their courage in exposing state capture at Eskom in the face of severe political pressure. This did not go unnoticed, with the Portfolio Committee winning the Lead South Africa Award of Changemakers of the Year for 2018. Well done to all involved. And let us also not forget that 1 billion rand was recovered from Eskom, for Eskom from McKinsey Management Consulting as a direct result of the Portfolio Committee's Eskom inquiry. Regrettably, however, we are still seeking to uncover the depths of fraud and corruption that occurred. And the country, as we know, is facing the prospect of load shedding, largely due to a number of coal contracts not being renewed in time by Eskom or even being cancelled to benefit Gupta-related companies. And yesterday, even in this House, Minister Pravin Gordhan indicated that the optimum coal conveyor belts that should be supplying coal to Hendrina Power Station, 2 conveyor belts are not running. The question needs to be asked why, and that is because of fraud and corruption. And now coal has to be transported by road at substantial additional costs, and this is disgraceful. Chairperson, the ACDP will, however, be considering this aspect, and we will be supporting this report given the good attempts that have been made to improve SOCs. I thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Mhlonishwa sihlalo walendlu. The Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises has considered the BRRR in the context of ongoing Commission of Inquiry into state capture, led by the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Some of the testimonies to the Commission have painted a disturbing picture about the capacity of our state-owned enterprises to deliver on their mandates. The National Development Plan places our SOEs at the center of building, maintaining and expanding a core network of national economic infrastructure to address the demand of the growing economy. The NDP identified that in the transport and energy sector, dominated by state-owned enterprises, the economy was constrained by inadequate investment and ineffective operation and maintenance of existing infrastructure. We are pleased that the department received an unqualified audit with no findings for the 2017-2018 financial year and maintained its performance level in the previous year. However, we widely varied financial performance of the entities within the public enterprises portfolio is a cause for serious concern. It brings into question the department's capacity to provide an effective shareholder management system and to support and promote economic efficiency within each of SOEs. The Portfolio Committee has made recommendations in the previous BRRRs, calling for the strengthening of oversight mechanisms on these critical SOEs. We have made similar recommendations in this financial year and added the urgent need to greater transparency and measures to mitigate the risk to the national fiscus posed by some of these entities. We trust that the Minister and Department will act firmly and the ANC supports this report. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. I now put the question again. Are there any objections to the report being adopted? I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chair, the DA calls for division. Thank you.
A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes. Can the doors be closed? Order, honorable members. I would like to remind members that they may only vote from their allocated seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their vote by pressing the appropriate button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be recorded as the member's vote when the voting session is closed by the chair. Order. The question before the House is that the BRRR report on public enterprises be adopted. Are all members on their allocated seats? Voting will now commence. Those in favor of the report should press the yes button. Those against should press the no button. And those wishing to abstain should press the abstain button. Have all members voted? Voting is now closed. Order, honorable members, the results of the vote are as follows. Yes, 161, no, 8, abstention. The report has been adopted. Can the secretary order, can the secretary read the fourth order?
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Transport.
I now recognize the Honorable, the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Chair. We move that the report be adopted.
Are there any objections to the motion that the report be adopted? There are objections. I now put the questions. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chair, the DA would like to make a declaration, please. Thank you.
A declaration has been requested. I now recognize the DA.
Under this Minister of Transport, the transport sector continues to be in dire straits. The worst performance in 4 years. The Minister has demonstrated no leadership as he does nothing to deal with critical issues. The ridiculous tug-of-war between Transnet and PRASA continues, despite all parties agreeing delivering less. With all these and many other issues being just the tip of the iceberg, the DA can thus not support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. The EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. While we could spend our time debating the collapse of our public railway system and PRASA capacity, the government's continued attacks on the taxi industry and its refusal to subsidize the industry, the 351,000 kilometers of unpaved roads in the country, or the exploitation of Uber drivers. We will instead talk about an issue which we have consistently raised and which government continues to ignore or does not have the capacity to address: the issue of public transport not being accessible to the disabled. Firstly, to ask a person in a wheelchair to try access a train when it is so full that people are sitting on the roof is madness. But secondly, disability is not limited to being in a wheelchair. What about the blind? What about those who are mentally disabled? For every South African, taking public transport has become a serious challenge. But the reality is that for those who are disabled, taking public transport, especially during peak hours, is basically impossible and the department ignorance on this issue is perfectly illustrated in this BRRR. The BRRR, in a short paragraph, mentions that access for those who are disabled is a problem, but no solutions are provided. Why is the department not holding proper consultations with those who are disabled? Why has there not been a greater allocation to make public transport more accessible for the disabled? Why are we not incentivizing taxes to make the advance?
Your time is up.
That is why we reject this BRRR. Thank you.
Thank you, IFP.
Honorable House Chairperson, the feeling of critical position in the department remains of great concern. CBRTA vacancies in particular, as this process has been underway since early June of this year. Irregular expenditure is still not being effectively constrained, and there is still little or no accountability for the officials who are responsible for authorizing such fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Supply chain management network are not appropriately capacitated with the skilled personnel required by the position they hold. Consequences, the management and implementation of poor performance must be actioned, and the AGSA recommendation must be fully implemented. Time frames in respect of filling annual departmental plans as required by law must be complied by the department. Chairperson, our roads and sea point infrastructure are at the heart of what enable our economy to grow and thrive. E-tolls are a constraint to such growth. Why are they not scrapped in their entity? Port charges in Durban are 800% overpriced. Why is this permitted? Transport must be created a necessary infrastructure, enabling environment for the economy to thrive in South Africa, not be dumb and impediment to such growth. Subject to above consent, the IP will support this BRRR. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member, NFP.
House Chairperson, thank you very much. This department has a mandate of maximizing the contribution of transport to the economic and social development goals of society by providing a safe, reliable, effective, and efficient, and fully integrated transport system that best meet the needs of passenger and freight users. It was a duty to come up with a well-coordinated transport infrastructure, efficient and affordable to consumers and the economy, ensure safety and security in all transport modes. All road users must act with circumspect at this time because it is the festive season. The department must focus on the existing zones. Now, the NFP supports the notion of intensified public participation on road usage. Provincial roads that are in a state of disrepair with potholes must be attended to. These also have a potential of creating thousands of jobs when they are worked on. We support the issue of building, cargo building, and other shipbuilding exercises. SANRAL has to strengthen matters of safety in trains. The metro rail system needs a facelift. However, we welcome the presence of police officers who will ensure the safety of passengers in trains. Now, the NFP concurs with the Portfolio Committee that the Board of PRASA must ensure the finalization and submission of the 2016-2017 annual report that is still outstanding in 60 days of the publication of the BRRR. And this failure must not be repeated again. Again, the matter of synergy pertaining to the road safety is important for entities so that they do not work in cross purposes. Progress action plans by entities to address undesirable audit outcomes should be submitted as per recommendation. The NFP supports the report. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
Thanks very much, House Chair. Let me state from the onset that the African National Congress supports the BRRR report. Albert Einstein once said, I quote, "Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters." The truth is that the ANC-led government has been in the forefront in developing infrastructure, which is conducive for economic stimulation in South Africa over the past 2 decades and a half. The ANC has committed itself to reverse the spatial inequalities and ensure safe, reliable, and effective modes of transport to contribute to economic development. ANC has noted the construction of high-quality roads infrastructure by SANRAL, which contributes to the creation of safer roads for South Africans. It is with pleasure to note that the current Brazza board has fulfilled its mandate of submitting its annual reports. This is a milestone towards achieving clean audits and bringing back the agency to normalcy. We are, however, not oblivious to the challenges facing Brazza, amongst others being unprecedented levels of attack on Brazza assets and infrastructure, as well as increasing number of train accidents and level of crime within the rail system. We are encouraged by the commitment of the board, supported by the department, to attend to all these challenges and leave Brazza better than the way they found it. The board has in addition developed a get-on-track rescue plan that, if implemented, will see positive results. This is in light of the fact that the majority of poor masses of our people depends on train as an affordable and accessible mode of transport. The department is working on growing concern, as highlighted by the AG, on lack of leadership, financial sustainability, and governance in some entities. The appointment of new board members and the filling of strategic leadership positions are being prioritized. We are confident also that SANRAL, with the support of department, will speedily resolve the challenges of non-collection of e-toll fees. Let me reiterate, Chair, that the ANC supports the adoption of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Order, honorable members. The motion is that the report be adopted. I now put the question. Are there any objections? Objection?
Yes, Chair, please note the objection of the EFF.
Thank you.
Chair, the DA calls for division. Thank you.
Order, honorable members, a division having been called, the bells will be rung for 1 minute. Can the doors be closed? Order. I'd like to remind members that they may only vote from their allocated seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their vote by pressing the appropriate button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be recorded as the member's vote when the voting session is closed by the chair. Order. The question before the House is that the BRRR report on transport be adopted. Are all members in their allocated seats? Voting will now commence. Those in favor of the report should press the yes button. Order, honorable members. Order. Are your gadgets now working? Order. Voting will now commence. Those in favor of the report should press the yes button. Those against should press the no. Those wishing to abstain should press the abstain button. Have all members voted? Voting is now closed. I've noted one hand there. Order, honorable members. The results of the vote are as follows. Yes, 145. No, 48.
Chairperson, a fish rots from its head. You can ask any fisherman and they will tell you how rotten the head of the Fisheries Department is. Fishermen have no trust in the department as it's corrupt and everybody wants chocho money. The first question that they ask is, what is in it for me? It seems like every person is running its own business within the department. And if you are not connected to the right person and the fish to fill their budget, this also has a negative effect on our economy and food security. Minister, this is untenable, and we believe that drastic action is required from you to root out the corruption and the corrupt officials, clean up the department. You have the power. Your inability and unwillingness to do so might indicate that the fish really rots from its head. I thank you.
EFF.
Honorable Speaker, there's a general perception around the country that our agricultural sector is efficient, productive, and able to produce sufficient food for domestic consumption and for exports. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our agriculture is characterized at best by huge monopolies. We have over time started operating as cartels, dominating each and every aspect of agricultural production, process, and sales. This bodes ill for comprehensive development of this sector in a manner that benefits all aspiring farmers and produce food that will also ensure household food security, not just national food security. We therefore need to dismantle these monopolies as a matter of urgency if we are to provide any chance for the development of smallholder agriculture. This must be accompanied by legislative changes to allow for subdivision of agricultural land, targeted promotion and support of smallholder agriculture, reintroduction of agricultural product marketing boards, and tightening of restrictions on imports of goods that can be produced in the country. This will ensure that we also produce and protect the local economy in the agricultural sector. This requires a visionary and decisive state, not the leadership currently provided. The BRRR is the same as it has always been. There is no vision, no breaking ground thinking on revitalizing our agriculture. The EFF rejects this report. Thank you very much.
Order. IFP, Honorable Nkomo will make her declaration from her desk.
Thank you, Chair. The Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries' role in the country is to essentially feed the nation and manage the export and import of food. This can only be achieved when the department's objectives are met in a proper and well-managed manner. The department is a key employment drive, or through its key employment drive, which it does through food processing,
the value chain, and it also has to work towards eliminating poverty and reducing inequality. Chair, farmers have to run up a steep hill because of competition with farmers from other countries who are subsidized by their government, and ours are not. The attempts to provide assistance to small-scale farmers and subsistence farmers, as well as new entrants, are so important in a way that we cannot ignore them any longer. Our poultry farmers are in trouble because their business is sinking because of cheap imports that are being imported into our country from countries like Brazil, China, and other countries. Settled land claims also are proving a bit of a problem where people are put into those lands and then they are not equipped on how to take care of the land, let alone to farm in those lands. The department must come up with strategies that can revive those farms, especially the farms where people are put and they are not given anything to do. Whilst the IFP supports this report, the IFP would like our concerns to be taken into consideration.
Order,
And Chair,
Honourable Member,
I'm giving
your
this
time.
report on behalf of Nkosi Ucebekulu. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP.
Sihlalo hloniphekile. Ngivumele ngiqale ngokuthi nje mamba uyeke umhlaba wethu. Sengishilo. I-NFP sihlalo iyawusekela lo mbiko obekwela ngaphambili namhlanje. Njengeqembu siyahlala kwikomiti lezolimo le-agriculture sibambe iqhaza ngenkathi lo mbiko wakhiwa. Siwusupportile khona namanje sizosho lokho ukuthi siyawusupport. But we want to raise just few things, Honorable Chair. The instability in the critical position and vacancies within the department is worrying. And we share on the observation of the Portfolio Committee that this impacts negatively in the performance of the department and its entities. If this department is not stable administratively, then food security can't be guaranteed. And this puts the future of the whole agricultural sector at risk. Lastly, we also share on the recommendations of the committee that more funding must be given to this department and its entities, since the department is much critical in assisting the emerging farmers as well as guaranteeing us with food security. Ukuze lo mnyango ukwazi ukuqhubeka phambili ukhiqiza amanye abalimi, siyacela ukuthi imali yawo iphinde ithi xaxa ikhuphuke, ngoba uma sizobuyisa umhlaba kodwa abalimi singabaqeqeshile siyoba nenkinga. Masifake imali kule department siqeqeshe futhi abalimi bethu ukuze mase bewuyekile umhlaba wethu siusebenze.
Order, UDM.
Ndiyabulela. The suggested changes to the budget will not necessarily improve the socio-economic impact that this department is expected to have on the poor people of South Africa. This is caused by several factors. Some of them are as follows. The overall management of the department has not improved at all since the end of the 2017-2018 financial year, with sour relationships between the senior management and personnel having taken a turn for the worse. This has been going on for over a year with no apparent end in sight. As a result, productivity has suffered. In addition, agricultural productivity has decreased, and the focus suggests that the set targets will not be achieved by the end of the current financial year. The department has acknowledged in its annual report that 8 million people suffer from food insecurity, but offers no concrete plan to alleviate this. The UDM will propose that the department needs to improve its planning capacity for all the program and project implementation. Why? Because for the current production season, the department has to be coaxed in order to present estimated jobs to be created as well as the project impact on food security. We also say that an enabling environment legislation needs to be fast-tracked as its absence limits the department's ability to carry out its mandate. Production must be accelerated on recently rehabilitated forest and agricultural land. We also want to take this opportunity to support the Portfolio Committee's recommendation that says that it must ensure that funds are transferred by DEF, the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, to the Land Bank for Agricultural Development, are indeed ring-fenced for that purpose.
Order, honourable member, the time is up. AIC.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Portfolio Committee on Agriculture has considered this report in accordance with Section 55 and 56 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, the rules of National Parliament, and Section 5 of the Money Bills Amendment and Related Matters Act number 9 of 2009. This department is expected now to put food on the table and is also responsible now for food security and food safety so that people now will not go hungry. The performance and expenditure of DAF's entities like Agricultural Research Council and National Agricultural Marketing Council were also looked into. According to National Development Plan, agriculture is the primary economic activity in the rural areas. That is why you always encourage the relationship between the traditional leaders and the ward councillors there, so that now we achieve the required results. One of the specific objectives is to engage the sectors like inclusive rural economy in accordance with outcome number 4 and 7, whereby 1 million
the department through their annual report, and we have engaged the Auditor General, and we want to commend the department for the achievement of some of the MTSF targets, but we want to register the concern as outlined in the report that the department has to improve. Honorable Chair, you know UDA, the way they are campaigning in this podium because they just raise concerns only, not raise the good things that the department has done. Let me remind Honorable who was here from the DA that this department in 2014 reported that we have only one vet for fish. Today, as we speak, we have 5 vets in the sector. And we came here to request that the Parliament must adopt the agreements of the CCTV. And what is happening today, South Africa, we're getting 40 tons of tuna. Today, because of the agreement that was passed by this Parliament, we're getting 450 tons. So this is the achievement. We acknowledge that there are problems, and we want to engage, to mandate the department to resolve those challenges in the department and make sure that service delivery is achieved and our people receive the better services, particularly our small producers must get the service that they deserve. And we want to say that with regard to the...
I'm sorry, Honourable Member, your time is up.
ANC support this report. Thank you very much.
I now put the question, those in favor of the report being adopted should say aye, and those against should say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chair, please note our objection.
The objections of the EFF have been noted. The report has been agreed to. Order, honourable members, During the discussion of the BRRR on the Public Enterprises report, a point of order was raised following this reference by Honorable Nkwankwa when he said Sistoko. In terms of our rules, indeed, it may not be as specific on the reference used, particularly in our vernacular languages. It only refers to honorable and Miss, Mr., or Miss. In terms of Rule 82, it states that members must refer to each other in a respectful way. Indeed, given our multicultural society, the reference used may be regarded as respectful in terms of the rule. So, as the phrase Mama Baba, as members have referred to in how at times even we as presiding officers have referred so to Mam Kaula. However, in other jurisdictions, this may not be as clear and also regarded as parliamentary protocols. As a society in transition, I think it is important for all of us to find a way in which we can find one another going forward. It is for that reason that I will approach the Speaker as the Chair of the Rules Committee to refer the matter to the Rules Subcommittee so that clarity can be raised and ensure that we are all guided appropriately on such matters going forward. Thank you. Can the Secretary read the 6th order?
Consideration of the review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Economic Development.
I now recognize the Honorable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Sihlalo, ngicela lendle ehloniphekile ukuthi yamukele lo mbiko wekomiti. Ngiyabonga.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? There is an objection. I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chairperson, the DA would like to make a declaration, please.
Declarations have been requested. I now recognize the DA.
Honourable Chairperson, insofar as this budgetary review and recommendations report reflects the deliberations of the Portfolio Committee on Economic Development, the DA supports the report. However, in keeping with the new dawn, it is time for the sun to set on the Economic Development Department. When EDD was launched in 2009, it was going to bring coherence to economic policy making and implementation across the state. It was going to promote inclusive growth. And the department was going to reduce unemployment by accelerating job creation. On every one of those indicators, policy coherence, economic growth, and employment, EDD has failed. This year, according to the International Monetary Fund, South Africa will be lucky to grow at 0.8%. In 2009, there were 6.7 million South Africans without a job. Today, there are 10 million unemployed South Africans. With every passing quarter, the National Development Plan's 2030 targets of 5% growth, 11 million jobs, and 6% unemployment fade further and further into the sunset. The Competition Commission, which receives over 366 million rand in transfers from EDD's 1 billion rand budget, was responsible for 128 million rand in irregular expenditure in the past 2 financial years. The competition regulator has institutionalized an elaborate patronage network with lawyer and former commission employee Anthony Nzabandaba at its center, but the minister refuses to see it and he refuses to do anything about it. Come 2019, EDD should be shut down and its budget and functions should be channeled to other departments. I thank you.
Thank you.
The EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. This department is one of many in the economic cluster that is useless and should be combined with others if and when the cabinet size is reduced. But this should not undermine the importance and the role of the Competition Commission, because the South African economy is perpetuating the apartheid economy. Since diamonds and gold were first discovered, the economy of the country has been dominated by monopolies. The financial sector is monopolized by 4 banks who control 88% of all banking assets. The supermarket and industry is monopolized by ShopRite, Pick n Pay, Spar, and Woolworths, who control more than 60% of the market. 90% of the oil refining market is controlled by only 4 companies. Telecommunication is monopolized. The construction company is monopolized and led to collusion in the industry. A handful of companies dominate the production and selling of bread, which our people depend on. MultiChoice has more than 98% of the market share of the pay TV market. The extent of these monopolies have often been uncovered by the Competition Commission, and more recently, the Commission ruled that the 2013 deal between the SABC and MultiChoice constituted a murder. The work of the Commission is of immeasurable value, but it must be given teeth and muscle to not only investigate and identify anti-competitive behaviors, but to break up the monopolies too. When this happens, we will support the BRRR, but until it happens, we will not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I've been informed the Honourable Nkomo will make a declaration from a seat. You may continue, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chair. At the onset, we applaud as the IFP the department for its clean audit status. This should become the norm in all departments. With a mission to improve alignment between economic policies, plans of the state, its agencies, government, political and economic objectives are quite important when one looks at the mandate of this department. However, there are a few areas which we would like to state as the IFP. This is the issue which affects especially the deployment of people by even the president of the country, where you find that people are not really honoring the mandate of this department as has been stated. Stable leadership is required. That is very important. And this hasn't happened in this department, in the sense that when one looks at the DG position, which has not been filled since 2014, that is problematic. Where we find that we've been having acting DGs in a row, that is problematic as well. Critical vacancies that are still open, that is still a problem as well. It must be noted that the department has a myriad of projects, as well as a lot of funds and entities, and it is important that all of these actually conform to how things are done. However, the IFP is in support of this report, but would like the issues that we have raised to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The NFP.
House Chairperson, thank you very much. The NFP welcomes the BRRR of the Portfolio Committee tabled here today. This department has a duty of coordinating all economic programs and interventions for inclusive growth, the unblocking of blockages in the economy, as well as the facilitation of dialogues with social partners. Of particular importance for the NFP is to ensure that the inequalities of the past are addressed. We want to see black industries taking their full position in the micro and macro projects, or in mega projects. We want to see the SMEs owned by the youth and women getting access to those opportunities which were hitherto reserved for a selected few. The NFP therefore calls upon the IDC and other entities to level the ground that will make it possible for applicants to gain access to funding in order for them to fund the already existing businesses and also cater for the new entrants by way of affording them the much needed equity for them to start their own businesses. For this reason, as the National Freedom Party, we shall unequivocally speak against any form of collusion that is done by shops and by petrol industries, etc., and other companies and cartels to disadvantage the small businesses. We call upon the Competition Commission and Competition Tribunal to be wide awake so as to deal with whatever anti-competition tendencies that emerge from time to time. We are aware that our economy has been negatively affected by technical recession. Our economy grew from 0.5 in 2016% to 1.3 rate in 2017, but it has since been downgraded. Unemployment increased from 26.7% to 27.5% over the same period. This, therefore, necessitates that the department does its utmost best to create an environment that will be conducive to investor confidence and job creation. The NFP agrees with the recommendation of the PC that this department must expedite the filling of the senior management positions, the filling of posts, the DG position should happen, and that should happen before the end of the financial year. The department should also strengthen the partnership with the National Treasury and the Department of Trade and Industry. The NFP supports the BRRR. Thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thank you very much, House Chair. South Africa is currently going through the second phase of transition from apartheid oppression and exploitation towards the creation of a true national democratic society. In this regard, the Portfolio Committee on Economic Development is, in terms of its constitutional mandate of oversight, legislative, and the facilitation of public participation role, supporting and guiding the Economic Development Department, which is working very hard to push back the frontiers of poverty, unemployment, and inequality through its coordinating and facilitative role. The committee scrutinized the reports of the department and its entities and appreciated the clean audit achieved by the department and its three entities, the IDC, the International Trade Administration Commission, and the Competition Tribunal, except for the Competition Commission, which received an unqualified audit outcome with findings against its performance. The committee strongly recommended to the Competition Commission to take measures to improve its planning and budgeting capacity so as to align its expenditure demands with available revenue and to implement all findings of the Auditor General. The ANC supports this B333 because the department is continuing to exert itself utilizing the IDC for the creation and protection of jobs as well as wealth ownership for our people through its funding of new businesses, particularly those belonging to women and the youth, and the promotion of black industrialists. We recommend that to the IDC must do more to support and nurture the growth of businesses owned by people with disabilities. The competition authorities continue to level the economic playing field by monitoring mergers and acquisitions and breaking cartels. The Competition Amendment Bill, which recently went through this House, further opens the mainstream economy of our country to black entrepreneurs. The ministry and department continue to remove blockages which prevent new investment opportunities, and many jobs have been created in this regard.
Your time is now expired.
The ANC supports this B333. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the seventh order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Environmental Affairs.
I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Chair. We move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? There are objections. I will thus put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Chair, the DA would like to make a declaration. Thank you.
The DA.
Thank you, Chair. The committee report states that the department should work closely with the AG
Now, we absolutely agree with this statement. However, we are concerned because the same advice has been given to the department for the past few years. And still, there has been major regression this time around. Modified cash standards have still not been met, even though it's been handed down to the department in the 2013-2014 financial year. It is utterly worrying that the Auditor General's report is filled with sentences like, "I couldn't find this, I was unable to determine that." Yet the committee's report mentions phrases such as, "The committee applauds the department." Overall, the committee is pleased with the department. Now, I'm asking you, are we pleased with a 38% increase in elephant poaching in the Kruger National Park alone? Are we pleased with the that the AG found that the transactions with implementing agents were found not to be transparent, fair, or equitable in accordance with the PFMA? Are we pleased with irregular expenditure findings amounting to 115 million rand? Are we pleased with the AG that the AG found that there are EPWP workers in the Department of Environmental Affairs employed that doesn't meet the criteria, or they are double dipping? So the DA is committed to building one South Africa for all, a South Africa free from corruption, and a South Africa that has fair access to jobs, and a South Africa that personifies freedom, fairness, opportunity, and celebrates our amazing and beautiful diversity. And it is therefore that we cannot, with a clear conscience, support this report. Thank you.
The EFF.
Honorable Chair, the environmental degradation, climate change, and indigenous development practices are the greatest challenges facing human existence today. Rising temperatures, droughts, outbreak of diseases are all linked to the human-induced and rapid degeneration of our natural resources. Therefore, all thinking about development should have at the center entrenched notions of ecologically sustainable development. Environmental considerations must permeate all policy development across all sectors of the state. This the department has failed to do. It has failed to regulate the mining sector, allowing for massive destruction of our national environment, as they are now busy doing with the proposed mining at Kolobeni and the proposed Wild Coast N2 road construction. We need to hammer it into the heads of these leaders that development doesn't have to mean destruction of the natural environment. The consequences of these decisions are too dare to even imagine. We therefore need to do a few things urgently. We must increase the protected area network to ensure that all representative ecosystems unique to South Africa and preserved are protected. We must streamline environmental authorization to ensure that the Department of Environmental Affairs become the only authority for granting authorizations for mining, property development, and other forms of development. We must ensure that mining companies who left abandoned mines are forced to come back and rehabilitate denuded mine landscapes. The EFF therefore rejects this BRRR. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The IFP.
Thank you, Chairperson, and Honourable Members. With regard to the comments made by the Honourable DA Member and the Auditor General's comments, it's really unacceptable that an accounting officer and his team cannot follow the recommendations of the Auditor General. But hopefully with the amendments to the Public Audit Amendment Act and the regulations that will come into place soon, then there will be consequent management for those accounting officers that do not comply with financial prescripts. Having said that, Honourable Chairperson, with the Acting Minister of Environmental Affairs also being the current Minister of Tourism, one cannot but feel hopeful that President Ramaphosa is thinking seriously about reducing the unsustainable size of the current cabinet he inherited from his predecessor. This he could do by combining the Tourism and Environmental Affairs portfolio committees into one ministry. That being said, Honourable Chairperson, we as the IFP are also hopeful that Minister Hanekom, being the Minister of Tourism, will be acutely aware of the damage that certain currently sanctioned and ill-informed practices, such as canned lion hunting and the lion bone trade, are having on brand South Africa, and he will immediately bring an end to these unsavory practices. But more about this, Chairperson, when we debate the colloquium report on environment next week. Chairperson, as you may know or not know, in terms of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change negotiated in 2015, countries had to submit intended nationally determined contributions, or INDCs, as a prerequisite to entering negotiations. As a result, many were drafted in haste and are weak and watered down in terms of what our country sets as targets, intentions, and actions. What is required is for the department to draft domestic policy and regulations to ensure that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We will support this report, but there's a lot of work needs to be done by this department. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The NFP.
House Chairperson, thank you very much. The mandate of this department is to ensure that the protection of the environment and conservation of natural resources balance with sustainable and climate change resilient development and the equitable distribution of the benefits derived from the natural resources. Now, this department must also ensure that it's strengthening its efforts on the matter of rhino poaching, and want to recognize the efforts that have been made on this area. A lot still has to be done on matters related to educating our people on gas pollution, which comes with lung and nose ailments, especially for those who reside next to the oil, paper, petroleum, and gas firms. Efforts that have been made to align our country with other countries to the question of climate change are of crucial importance in educating the nations on the subject. Now, the NFP concurs with the recommendation of the committee that SANPACs should develop a plan to address a whole host post with regard to post-retirement and medical benefits. The NFP also concurs with the PC on saying this South board members from the previous board should be held liable for the 2 million rand as well as the additionally regular expenditure of 825,000 incurred in the 2016-2017 financial year. Having said that, Chairperson, this department also received adverse audit opinions with findings, meaning that DEA's audit outcome has not improved or changed relative to the previous year. This department performed badly when it comes to goods and services, where the department has entered into contractual agreements with various implementing agencies working for or on the programs as part of the EPW programs that administers it. It is noted that SANPACs obtained an unqualified audit opinion with material findings on the percentage growth in total number of local black visitors and percentage growth in the overnight local black visitors. SANPI regressed and received a qualified audit as well.
Your time is now expired.
Having said that, these are all, it's a plethora of issues that the department must attend to. The NFP supports the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thanks, House Chairperson. Honorable members, afternoon. The Portfolio Committee on Environmental Affairs had duly interrogated the annual reports, financial statements, and the audit outcomes of the Department of Environmental Affairs and its 4 entities, namely the Isimangaliso Wetland Park Authority, South African National Biodiversity Institute, the South African National Parks, and the South African Weather Service in the period under review. Having also scrutinized the respective quarterly reports of the said department and the 4 departmental entities, the committee knows that the department had been one of those well-functioning government departments for a very long time. However, it seems that the department has not fully recovered from the modified cash standards departure exemptions that it received in 2013-14. The exemption required adjustment of the department's method in accounting for transactions with implementing agents as capital assets and goods and services, but most importantly, a change of internal controls that should apply to expanded public works program projects for which the department had been qualified in the past 2 financial years. The Auditor General of South Africa provided an overview of the audit outcomes and other findings in respect of the environmental portfolio for the period under review. However, the committee felt concerned that the Auditor General reported that the quality of the annual performance reports submitted by DIA and entities for the audit had generally retrogressed in terms of clean audits, quality of financial statements, and quality of performance reports, findings on compliance with legislation and irregular expenditure. The committee is further concerned by the fact that the department received adverse audit opinion with findings, meaning that DIA's audit outcome and findings have not improved or changed relative to the previous financial year. The basis for the adverse audit opinion with findings included, among others, goods and services, where the department
Honourable
had
Member,
entered.
your time is now expired.
We are pleased with the turnaround strategy and we support the budget. We thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, are there any objections? No, are there objections?
House Chair, please note the objection of the Democratic Alliance.
Be noted.
Chair, can you also note the EFF rejection?
It's noted. The report is therefore agreed to. The Secretary will read the 8th order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Standing Committee on Finance.
I now recognize the Honourable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Chair. We move that the report be adopted by this House.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? There are objections. I put the question. Those in favour will say aye. And those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
House Chair, the DA would like to make a declaration.
DA.
Imin. Honourable Chair, there can be no doubt that National Treasury performs a critical role in the running of the state. The transparency and detailed information that National Treasury produce is of a very high standard. This is evidenced in the comprehensive budget documents that are produced every year and the innovative reports that are produced. One of these innovations is the fiscal risk statement that contains very valuable information about serious fiscal risks that face South Africa. There can be no member of this Parliament, government ministers in particular, who can justifiably claim ignorance of these risks when they become reality because no remedial action was taken. 85 billion annual debt redemptions, 670 billion government guarantees, 350 billion government guarantees to Eskom, 703 billion debt owed by SOEs, 80 billion rand annual SOE debt redemptions, 393 billion rand road accident fund liabilities. The National Treasury annual report indicates that there were 47 senior management level vacancies, which must undoubtedly result in vulnerability, as would appear to be the case with the forecasting division of Treasury. It is critical that National Treasury should now fill vacancies in apex positions and have the opportunity to rebuild its capacity to that it had before the vicious capture attacks that very nearly succeeded and
Honourable
brought
Member,
Treasury
your
to
time
its
has now
knees.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. The EFF.
Thanks, House Chair.
We're not going to address the undue emphasis on technical issues by the report when there is a much bigger ideological and pressing matter about the nature and character of Treasury and the Ministry of Finance of this country. There are people who go around claiming struggle credentials, claiming to be progressive and claiming to be at the forefront of the transformation of the financial sector. But their actions have been the biggest stumbling block to transformation in the last 20 years. If anything, the VBS matter has taught us is that if you are black and in the financial sector, you will be squashed. When a few people loot the entire institution, its systems, its history, and its people will be collapsed, without even being given a second chance by the very same people who claim to be leading transformation in the financial sector. VBS was one of the few spaces in the financial sector where black people had control. The Reserve Bank and National Treasury should have taken care of them.
Honourable Mente, will you just take your seat? Why are you rising, Honourable Chief Whip?
Can the honourable member take a question?
Oh, yes, bring it on.
Are we saying as this parliament, or you for this parliament, that we must glorify looting by anybody, mass looting at the VBS? Is that what you're saying?
Honourable Member?
You should have asked that question when Steinhoff was looted 400 billion. You should have asked that question when African Bank was looted and you saved it. You should have asked that question back in before you were even in that seat, when you have saved more than 2 banks by this own parliament. VBS.
Order, honourable members. Order.
Can I continue?
Continue, honourable member.
Yes.
Order.
VBS was one of the few spaces in the financial sector where black people had control. The Reserve Bank and National Treasury should have taken care of them, should have given them preference, should have assisted them to comply with the law and made that institution what transformed to be a fully fledged black bank, but they did not. When it is white-owned banks, they go out of their way, they give them preferences.
Honourable Mente, will you take your seat, please?
House Chairperson,
why are you rising, Honourable Member?
Will the Honourable Member be prepared to take a question?
Are you prepared to take a question, Honourable Member?
I don't have time. Can I finish?
Order, Honourable Members. Order. Continue, Honourable Member. Order, Honourable Members.
It is white-owned, but my time, you did not give me my time.
No, we stopped it. Continue, Honourable Member.
When it's white-owned banks, they go out of their way, they give them preferences, and the very same people have been rescuing the banks that they've collapsed without hesitation since the early 90s.
Honourable
And
Member,
right now,
your time is now expired.
in National Treasury, I monitorish the day kutwa collapse, baza liquidator because belong
Honourable Member, your time is now
care for a second for
expired.
black people, and you don't empower them.
The IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. At the outset, let me say that the IFP supports this report, and we want to thank the team, excuse me, at National Treasury, who under very difficult circumstances continue to do very, very important work. Honourable Chair, of course, there's the issue of the qualified audit opinion, and the circumstances of that are, of course, concerning, and we understand that they're not the making of National Treasury, and we hope that as a matter of urgency, that will be sorted out. Secondly, Honourable House Chair, the IFP is concerned at the fact that National Treasury continues to be undermined by many government departments and state-owned entities insofar as deviations and expansions are concerned. Some departments are not conducting themselves honestly, and at times some of them are simply ignoring the advice which National Treasury is giving. And so this kind of behavior where National Treasury regulations are ignored does not augur well for sustainable financial management in this country. On the issue of VBS, very strong lessons arise out of VBS. And I think at the outset, one of them is we cannot in good faith stand here and reduce VBS to just being a black bank. It was a bank, and it was looted by people at the expense of the poor people who did not have access to the services provided for by the mainstream banks. And because their systems are relaxed, the mass looters found a soft spot and abused what was there for the majority of our people. Now, what must National Treasury do when it is thieves who go out of their way to steal things? The final caution I just want to give, Honorable Chair, is that you have now deployed Pearl Bank with the former CEO of SASA to Itala Bank. Her track record will land us with another VBS situation. Remove her before she collapses that bank. I do not know what you are thinking,
your time is
but
now
that
expired.
kind of rationale was wrong. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The NFP.
From the outset, House Chairperson, the National Freedom Party wants to state it that we support this budget. And Honorable Chair, once again, questions are raised on financial accounting and supply chain management system programs at National Treasury. The AG has identified challenges in various entities, with 57% of them receiving unqualified audit opinion, with finding mainly as a result of failure to comply with supply chain management prescripts. While the National Treasury spent 98.3% of its budget, 17 only received 79.19% of its performance targets. Once again, consequence management remains a concern. What is most disappointing, House Chairperson, is that National Treasury, which is the custodian of all funds, had incurred expenditure of 769 million, with a further wasteful plus fruitless expenditure of 69 million rand. The poor oversight resulting in the collapse and looting of VBS Bank again highlights the weaknesses in the oversight mechanism in place. The VBS model was the best community-based empowerment model for our people. Yet thieves and looters decided to collapse it. The matter of IFMS system has not been dealt with adequately, and those responsible must appear and should not be off the hook. The NFP welcomes the inquiry into PIC. Billions of rand in illicit financial flows continue unabated, and this must be dealt with. Honorable Chairperson, weaknesses in SARTs resulting in low compliance in company tax is a matter of concern. The recent revelations on SARTs are a serious matter, and we hope these will be attended to. Thank you very much, Chairperson. We support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The ANC.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Members, the African National Congress supports the BRRR in advance. Section 216(1) of the Constitution requires government to be transparent and accountable, and therefore, National Treasury has always maintained these constitutional prescripts and has always been an exemplary department as it relates to accountability. And during the current fiscal year, National Treasury spends 98.3% of its total budget. And we're also pleased with Program 4, which deals with asset and liability management. This program has consistently ensured This program has consistently ensured that there is fiscal management and prudentiality in relation to enforcement of our laws, and especially when it relates to state-owned enterprises. And 99.9% of this program has been spent to address issues of state-owned companies. However, in the same vein, we register our disappointment at SARS for its underperformance for collecting more revenue and to pay VAT refunds in good time, and promise to do our work to hold its leadership accountable. In the same vein, we need to put on record that the National Treasury has not looted VBS. VBS has been looted by individuals who received money in the form of gratuity. Therefore, we have made sure as the African National Congress that measures are taken to ensure that we correct this through the Twin Peaks legislation to give the Prudential Authority power and mandate to change its rules and be more intrusive in its oversight role. As we continue, Honorable Chairperson, the President is going to commission a commission on inquiry on the PIC. Therefore, we should not put the horse before the cart on this
Honourable
matter,
Member,
and
your
we
time
will
has now
await
expired.
the decision of the President. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable members, are there any objections to the report being adopted?
House Chair, the DA calls for a division.
A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes. Honourable members, I'd like to remind you that you may only vote from your allocated seat, and when requested to do so, order, honourable members, you must simply press or indicate your vote by pressing the appropriate button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be recorded as the member's vote when the voting session is closed. The question before the House is that the budget review and recommendation report of the Standing Committee on Finance be adopted. Are all members now in their allocated seats? Voting will now commence. Those in favor of the report should press the yes button. Those against the no button. And those wishing to abstain should press the abstain button. Have all members voted? There's an honourable member there at the back and another one that side. Can we just ensure that their votes are recorded? The voting session is now closed. Honourable members, the outcome of the division is as follows. Those in favour, 150. Those against, 46. There's no abstentions, and the vote is accordingly agreed to. The Secretary will read the 9th order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation.
I now recognize the Honourable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Sihlalo sisukuma ngokuzithoba ukuthi lo mbiko wekomiti yezamanzi yamukeleke kulendlu ehloniphekile. Siyabonga.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? There are objections. I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
House Chair, the DA would like to make a declaration.
The DA.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. World Toilet Day will be celebrated on Monday, the 19th of November. However, many people in the Northern Cape Free State and some other parts of the country still have to use bucket toilet. Their dignity has not been restored 24 years after democracy. They were promised, like many South Africans, a better life for all by the ANC. The ANC government has instead robbed our people of their dignity. The Department of Water and Sanitation is a department going nowhere slowly, with many municipalities still without water and proper sanitation, maintenance backlogs, and leadership vacuum. The Department of Water and Sanitation, in the period under review, failed to achieve the majority of its targets due to this lack of management and leadership. We hope that the President goes to visit the Giyani Water Project on his Tumamina. He will take the former Minister Nomvulo Monganyane with him. She must tell the people of Giyani why they are still without water. She has failed the people. All we want to say is that the ANC does not care about our people. The ANC, the DA is the only party that has a plan to speed up service delivery, improve water reticulation, and build one South Africa for all. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The EFF. Order, Honourable Members.
Ngibonge sihlalo. Hayi mina ngamsana nale mbiko ngiyawuchitha nje le BRR sorry bye bye. Inkinga yamanzi inzima kakhulu kubantu abamnyama. Lapha kakhulukazi ngilalela bafethu ufuna nilalele la eCape Town. Kunenkinga enkulu. Angazi ngempela why abantu bakithi badlalela abantu abamhlophe. La eCape Town amanzi abantu abamnyama anqamuka ngo10 ebusuku. Koze kube kusasa. La khona futhi la eCape Town. Amanzi abantu abamnyama ku Ward 4 la eCape Town ufuna ningilaleleni. La eCape Town ngicela ulalela ungangiphazamisi. La eCape Town amanzi abantu ayanqanyulwa. Ngenxa yezikweletu mabe yobuza ukuthi yini na kuthiwa oisho 80,000 no 100,000 abantu abamnyama njalo bodwa labo bese ngisuka lesi emdansane nina njalo ANC ngiyajabula kakhulu ku-Ward 21 abantu bakhona abanawo amanzi kodwa ompompi bakhona amanzi kusukela ngoJune amanzi awekho and ogogo laba badala nomkhulu labantu abahola impesheni abaseneminyaka awu60 bakhokhiswa imali yamanzi ezikweletu o600 lenkinga yamanzi inkinga kakhulu ngoba even kunesikole la kuthiwa isesibeko primary asinawo amanzi abantu bakithi bayahlupheka kakhulu ngoba even izikole uqoba izingane zakithi zisenkingeni zifanele ukuthi before ingane yofunda esikoleni iqala ithatha ibhakede yokha amanzi emfuleni kodwa nina ni anwayenzi
Honourable
lonto
Member, your time is now expired.
lento le kufuna ngitshela abantu ukuthi kusukela manje next year bengayihluphi ukuvotela iDA neANC
Honourable Member,
abanandaba
your
nomuntu
time has
omnyama
expired.
bye bye ningizwile kodwa
The IFP.
Honorable House Chairperson, angiqale nje ngokuthi njengomfana walapha eMfume ku Ward 115 eThekwini emakhaya amanzi make nje kwana noma kwabakhona ocasukayo officeini lakhe lehle likhona amaviki amabili amathathu ayaphela amanzi esingenawo umbuzo uthi abantu bakithi abaphile kanjani uma ngisho ingqala zisiza zikhona kodwa abantu amanzi bengawatholi ngibona ungazi ukuthi kuyinhlekelele lokhu ukuthi noma sezikhona insiza kusebenza ukuthi amanzi awatholakali kodwa ke isizathu salokho siyacaca nje Honorable Minister Nkwinti you are handed a poison chalice because the corruption in the Department of Water Affairs inuka la emhlabeni izixa uNkulunkulu emazulwini. There is simply no controls whatsoever. Kufile nje. And the issue is that there's no consequences. Manje nonke ke nizohlala na kanibuka uMinister uNkwinti ningababheka ade fanele ngabe niyababheka. Why do we continue to harbor in cabinet people who have failed our people? Giyani inkinga. Umhlathuze water inkinga oyibange kwaNongoma iyasabeka abantu amanzi abanawo. Ama entities wonke inenkinga yokuthi nje corruption is the alpha and omega of the operations. So we can come here and lament and lament and lament and lament. The issue is the absence of consequences. So Minister, xosha abantu. Xosha nje abantu. So support it, that's the right thing to do. Bese silungile and get people who are fit for purpose. Lo khuluma ngenkatha, inkatha avuyayiletha intuthuko. Ngakina yikho la khona khona inkatha ikhona ngoba
your time is now expired.
Futhi at least ngiyabona inkatha uyayithanda uyinakile qhubeka ukhulume ngayo.
The NFP.
Angithokoze sihlalo udaba lwamanzi ludaba olubaluleke kakhulu kanye nokuthutha kwemfucuza. Kuneyindawo ezweni lakithi ngempela enesimo esibucayi. Ngqongqoshe kuke kwathi kulempela viki ngathola iphepha iCity Press. Mangilivula ngemuva kukhonjiswa esinye isikole lapho izingane zikhonjiswa zoyikhulula khona esimene esibucayi ngendlela emangalisayo. Engazi ukuthi ke mhlambe umnyango usebenzisana nalo wezemfundo yamazinga aphansi kanye nalo kaCorrectional. Kukhona kufanele kwenzeke ukuthi kulungiswe ukuze abantu bakithi bebuyelwe isithunzi nezikole zethu buyelwe isithunzi. Kodwa okunye futhi esicabanga ukuthi kufanele kwenzeke ukuthi ke sibale kahle ukuthi amadamu esinawo lapha ezweni lakithi mangakanani. Njoba sengisho ukuthi udaba lamanzi udaba lobucayi kabi ke siwabala ukuthi mangakanani ngoba kukhona abantu abanama license amadamu uthola sebedayisela abantu amanzi. Hamba uye endaweni efana nomkhanya kude uthola ukuthi kunedamu elikhulu lapha kodwa abantu abasizakali amanzi ekhona emaningi. Ushone nakwezinye indawo uthola ukuthi uyedwa nje umuntu ophethe ilicense yamanzi abantu bengasizakali. Leyo nto fanele iqedwe ezweni lakithi. Ngicabanga ukuthi kuzoba umsebenzi obalulekile ofanele wenzeke ukuze isimo silunge ezweni lakithi. Uhambe endaweni efana noNgoye uthola ukuthi abantu babanga amanzi neinkomo. Isimo okudala izifo ukuthi zibhebhetheke zande ezweni lakithi. Udaba lamanzi isimo esibucayi kabi. Bese kuthi kulezi indawo lapho kunemkhukhu khona. Mawufika khona uyabona ukuthi isimo sibucayi. Ngiyazi ukuthi lolo udaba ufanele ulungele umnyango lo odila neindaba zezindlu kodwa ke ngiyacabanga ukuthi nomnyango uyolekelela ngoba uhulumeni usebenza kanjalo phela kuba kubanjiswane iminyango isebenze ngendlela ukuthi ibambisene. Lezi zinto sitha sibeke njengqongqoshe ngoba isimo ufike sonakele kakhulu eminyangweni. Ziningi izinto ezingalungile. No-Auditor General wazi wabuza ukuthi ngabe lo mnyango u-technically insolvent yini. Uzobheka nje ukuthi kune irregular expenditure of 1.6 billion rand, unauthorized expenditure of 526 million rand, liabilities record 19.3 billion, and a further commitments of 7.1 billion. Nokunye kuningi okonakele emnyangweni. Kunalokho kodwa soxhasa lo mbiko ukuze uqhubeke usebenze ufake iswebhu kubuyele esimeni. Siyabonga.
The ANC.
Sorry, Slal.
Yes, why are you rising, honourable member?
Ngiyabonga Slal. Hey, ngiyanithanda ave nine-respect Shem. No, bengithi ngifuna ukulungisa engaloko ethile kunedam imakhathini flat kuzazi uminister omusha. Lapha yana yebelungu badlala khona lo mdlalo omusha okuthiwa idibhala. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you, Mama.
Thank you,
Honourable
Chair. On
Johnson.
behalf of the committee, I present this unanimously adopted report for adoption with all its 17 recommendations. Also wish to thank the hard-working officials within the Department of Water and Sanitation. Despite all the challenges confronting the department, there is light at the end of the tunnel. As a committee of parliament, we can visibly see the progress on our efforts in fixing the department. Our people are more and more getting access to potable water and dignified sanitation. Indeed, the ANC continues to live with its objectives of changing the lives of our people for the better through delivery of water and services and also dignified sanitation. We shall never falter on these objectives. Under the new minister, Mr. Gugelo Nkwinti, the department is on course in cleaning the department and achieving the above objectives, working together, of course, with Correctional and National Treasury. Towards provision of infrastructure in the water and sanitation space, all efforts in cost effectiveness, efficiency must be exhausted. It must always be emphasized that we must explore new innovations and technological advancements as we address the infrastructure backlog. As the ANC, we call on all of those involved in projects within the Department of Water and Sanitation and its entities to desist from current and future corrupt activities. Fellow South Africans, you can see who does not want you to have access to water and dignified sanitation. They are all clear by now. For coming year 2019, you must get to remember them. Others are called in the names of DA and others are called in the name of EFF. There are many of them. The ANC wants you to have more and more access to water and dignified sanitation. I adopt this report. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable member. Are there any objections, honourable members?
Sicela ushicilele apho basivumelane.
The objection of the EFF will be recorded. Are there any further objections? None. The report is therefore agreed to. We now come to motions without notice. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a motion without notice?
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows with sadness the death of a firefighter, Colin Reinhardt, an injury of Heinrich Martinez and Corbin Cubito when the truck which they were traveling overturned and rolled down in Michel's Pass near Worcester on Wednesday, the 7th of November 2018. Understand these incidents happened as the team was returning from fighting fires. Recognizes that Reinhardt and his team are the kind of patrons who do their job with dedication, and losing such an experienced firefighters is a serious blow. Recalls that this is the second firefighter to die in this area following Nico Haynes, who died when the helicopter crashed while deployed to fight blazed in Vermaklekhate in the Garden Route area, and conveys condolences to the family of Collins Reinhardt and wishes the speedy recovery of the other two younger team members, Heinrich Matheson and Cabin Cobido. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The DA?
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes with sadness the passing of Mr. Gregory Karelse, who was fondly known as Mr. Kali. Further notes that Mr. Karelse loved his community and was very involved in fighting and combating gang violence and crime in Bishop Lavis. Also notes that because of his passion of fighting crime, he was targeted by many alleged gang bosses. He died 5 minutes from his home in a hail of bullets, and the killers are not yet found. Hopes that the culprits were caught and prosecuted so that the Karelse family and the community of Bishop Lavis finds closure. Calls upon the Minister of Police to urgently deploy more police and vans in the Bishop Lavis community, which has a lot of drug abuse, gang-related killings, and other serious crimes, and conveys its condolences to the family and friends of the Karelse. I thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The EFF?
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House notes that at the end of this year, their old SASSA cards will expire. It is estimated that there are still over 500,000 grant beneficiaries using the old card, and if they do not swap in their old cards for the new ones from the 1st of January 2019, they will not be able to access their social grants. It should further be noted that all new cards can be collected from post office branches and SASSA offices. For years now, our social grant system has been experiencing problems, and there have been delays in payments this year already. Our people rely on social grants to survive, and it will be an absolute disaster if the beginning of the new year, in the middle of the festive season, there are families that cannot eat because they are unable to access their social grants. Call upon the Department of Social Development and Post Office to put all efforts into ensuring that every SASSA grant recipient has the new card by the end of the year. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections?
Factually incorrect, we object.
There's an objection. The motion is not agreed to. The ANC?
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes that South Africa's very first film, Five Fingers for Marcels, won the 5 awards, including Best Film, at the African Movie Academy Awards on Saturday, 20 October, Rwanda. Further notes that the hit film, directed by Michael Matthews, was the big winner at the 2018 Annual African Movie Academy Awards, which are meant to celebrate the films from across the continent. Understands that the film tells the story of a group of friends who call themselves Five Fingers, a gang dedicated to protecting their rural town of Marseilles against police oppression. Further understands that a life-changing incident leads to the character Tao fleeing the town and being on the run for years. He returns 20 years later, seeking peace only to find the town under new threat and has to fight again. Remembers that the film is made up of 97% black cast, handpicked by acclaimed casting director Muninium Lee, and congratulates the actors and everyone behind this phenomenal film. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The IFP.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move on behalf of the IFP without notice that the House 1 notes that tomorrow, Friday the 16th of November, marks the 158th year since one of the first groups of Indian people were recorded to have settled in South Africa, arriving in Durban in the year 1860 from Madras to work in the sugarcane plantation in Port Natal. Further notes that the group was made up of 197 men, 89 women, and 59 children who were all indentured laborers. Acknowledges that some returned to India after their contractual term ended, and those that remained established themselves as industrial and railway workers. Further acknowledges that today the province of KwaZulu-Natal has the highest population of people of Indian origin outside of India. And finally encourages and implores the living descendants of these first settlers to always consider themselves as South Africans first, for all intents and purposes, and to continue to contribute in building our nation to new and greater heights while promoting social cohesion, as is the responsibility of all South Africans. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The NFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move without notice that this House notes that a former cleaner, the 30-year-old Pastor Mthokozis Makanya, who was born in Eshowe and then moved to Wamash to find work, whilst at the same time preached at a small church in Inanda, graduated with a Bachelor of Education degree from the University of South Africa. Remembers that for 12 years, Pastor Makanya was a cleaner at John Wesley Primary School. Acknowledges that Pastor Makanya's potential of becoming a teacher was identified by Helen Birchall, the school principal, when he visited a friend who had, whose husband had passed on and was given an opportunity to preach at that school in Pinetown. Recognizes that it took Pastor Makanya 6 years to complete his BA degree, as he was doing it on a part-time basis, and is now teaching mathematics, isiZulu, English, and computer studies at both the intermediate and senior phases at his school. Wherefore, this House wants to congratulate Pastor Makanya for this fine achievement, which speaks to the fact that with faith, discipline, focus, resilience, hard work, and persistence, success is possible.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, Chair. The African National Congress moved without notice that the House knows that South Africa beat France 29-26 in heavy rain at the Stade de France on Saturday, 10th November 2018. Understand that the results extended South Africans' 9-year unbeaten run against France and restored some confidence for coach Rassi Erasmus, with less than a year to go until the start of the World Cup in Japan. Recalls that replacement Hukamo Mbongeni Mbonambi's touchdown after 85 minutes allowed the Springbok to celebrate a win, which followed narrow losses to New Zealand and England. Believe that the dedication and resilience helped the Boks to emerge victorious against France and congratulates the Boks on their victory and wishes that well in their next match against Scotland in Eldeberg on Saturday, 17 November 2018. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The UDM?
House Chair, I move without notice on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House acknowledges with sadness the death of the experienced paraglider and aerial photographer Anthony Allen, who fell to his death in Llandudno on Tuesday, the 13th of November 2018. Notes that Ineke van Heinsten of ER24 said paramedics found the paraglider lying on the front stoop of a house in Cape Town's seaboard suburb, and various emergency services were in attendance. Further notes that at the time the paramedics arrived at the scene, the man was found to be in a critical condition and his vital signs had deteriorated rapidly, and that despite the paramedics' attempts to revive him, they were unable to do so. Sends its condolences to the family and friends of the victims. Calls on the relevant authorities to conduct a thorough investigation of this incident before the upcoming festive season, where many people will take to the sky in sports and other recreational activities, and advise on recommendations for safety in this regard. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Freedom Front Plus, the DA.
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House knows the decision by the community of Koffiefontein in the Free State to embark on a total shutdown. Further notes that the decision to shut down does not only disrupt ANC programs, but is affecting learners who are writing exams in all grades. Wishes to thank the Provincial Department of Education for arranging alternative venue for matric learners to write their final examinations without disruptions. Calls for the ANC government to resolve the issues raised by the community, as some of their requests are legitimate, therefore allowing stability in Koffiefontein 2 and 4, the exams of other grades to proceed without further interruptions, and further calls that everything be done to ensure the needs of learners and South Africans are put first. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House know that in 2014, over 100 workers of PRASA in Cape Town were unfairly and illegally dismissed. As a result, these workers were added to masses of unemployed that populate our country, leaving them and their families to suffer as they had no means of income to survive. After 14 months of fighting their dismissal, the workers were eventually reinstated. But instead of paying them their full salaries as was instructed by the internal report, they were only paid for 4 of the months, denying them 10 months of income which they are legally entitled to. This is both unfair and unjust. Further, recognize the unfair treatment and dismissal of these workers, and acknowledge the need for all who were dismissed to be paid the full 10 months worth of salary that they are still owed. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
Thanks, Chairperson.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows that the Proteas have clinched their one-day series against Australia at Hobart on Saturday, the 11th November 2018, with a conclusive victory by 40 runs in the final match. Further notes that the comprehensive victory has underlined the ability to perform when the pressure is at its greatest, and shows that the Vision 2019 strategy is well on the track for next ICC Men's World Cup. Understands that they took the match by the scruff of the neck after the loss of 3 early wickets. Recalls that it was very appropriate way to live up to the Protea 600 ODI. Believes that both the teams deserve credit for their performance in this series, and congratulates to our captain Faf
Congratulations to our captain, Faf Duplessis, our head coach, Otis Gibson, and all the players and support staff for magnificent achievement. Ke a leboga motlotlegi.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. COPE, the ACDP, the ANC.
Thanks, Chairperson. The ANC moves without notice that the House congratulated Tao Mure for being appointed acting Group Chief Executive at Transnet with effect from 1st November 2018 to 30th April 2019. Number 2, notes that Mure joined Transnet in 1997 and served as a Chief Executive of 3 Transnet divisions, namely National Ports Authority, Freight Rail, and Port Terminals. 3, also notes that he led the Port Management Association of Eastern and Southern Africa from 2011 to 2014. 4, recalls that he is a BA Economics graduate from Howard University in the USA and also holds qualification from the National University in Singapore. 5, believe that his crucial appointment will ensure that Transnet strengthens and consolidates its governance procedures, adding much needed impetus in ensuring that state-run institutions are well governed. 6, further believe that his service will play its role in growing regional economic and wish Tao Moro well in his new position of responsibility. I thank you. Clap your hands.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The AIC.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of AIC, I hereby move without notice that this House notes that 102 million rand has been invested in 30 schools across the country for the building of new infrastructure. That Zamagutle Junior Senior School in Matatiel is one of the 5 schools in the Eastern Cape that has also benefited. As in partnership, the Industrial Development Corporation and Adopt a School Foundation are the implementing agencies for this big initiative. Zamagutle Junior Senior School has received a multimedia center from ITC. That this multimedia center includes computer laboratory, audio center, and library. These facilities were handed over on the 1st of November 2018 by the Basic Department of Education and ITC. 20 million rand has been invested in the 5 schools in the Eastern Cape, including Zamogutle Junior Senior School. The other 4 schools are the following: Siwali Secondary School in Lusigisigi, Maria Zell Senior School in Matatiel, where Honorable Minister Mutsecha matriculated, and I also did my grade 12, standard 10, then Maria Zell High School. Tulan Senior School in Matatiel, and Nkonkwane Primary School in Hillovale. The quality of education in this school is expected to improve with grade 12 results. Very good. We appreciate this initiative by the Department of Education. I so move. Thank you.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
This is a good motion, but it was not circulated.
The motion is not agreed to. Agang, the ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I move on behalf of the African National Congress without notice that the House notes with shock the death of 47 people after 2 buses collided in Zimbabwe on Wednesday, the 7th of November 2018. Understands that 1 bus was traveling to the capital, Harare, from the eastern city of Mutare, and the other was traveling in the opposite direction when the accident happened in the town of Rusape. Recalls that although traffic accidents are common in Zimbabwe due to many potholes, the highway where the accident occurred had recently been resurfaced. Remembers that there have been several deadly bus accidents in Zimbabwe in recent years, including a June 2017 incident
which left 43 people dead and 24 more injured when the driver lost control of the vehicle, and conveys condolences to the family of the deceased and government of Zimbabwe, and wishes those injured a speedy recovery. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The APC, the PAC, the DA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House acknowledges the recently released National Railway Safety Report by the Railway Safety Regulator. Notes that this report reflects a deteriorating state of protection to passengers, staff and assets in South African rail. Further notes that while cable theft and vandalism is often mentioned as the main safety constraints, this constitutes 19% of failure, and that operational management and supervision glitches represent nearly 70% of the root causes. Also notes that in addition to these disclosures, recent manual train sanctions by the safety regulator have increased from 35,000 to 614,000 between January and September this year, and urgently calls upon the Minister and the Transport Portfolio Committee to act on this situation without delay. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates South Africa for being elected onto the International Telecommunication Union Executive Council and Radio Regulation Board on Tuesday, the 6th of November 2018, that South Africa has been elected to serve in both International Telecommunication Union institutions until 2022, that the country received overwhelming support from the 179 member states attending the ITU Plenary Conference, believes that South Africa will use the position to push for the developmental agenda alongside the African Union's Agenda 2063, and further believes that as a member of the 48-member council, South Africa will continue to champion the development agenda, including the acceleration of broadband rollout to support the sustainable development goals, and wishes South Africa much success on the new position of responsibility. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. There's no objections, and the motion is thus agreed to. That concludes motions without notice. The next item on the order paper is member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement?
Yes, Honorable House Chair. Statement on the work of the Competition Commission. The Competition Act has achieved a lot since it was brought into operation in October 1998. Over the 20-year period, the competition authorities have registered significant successes in the fight against cartels, abuse of market dominance, and protection of public interest during measures. The authorities imposed more than 8 billion in penalties on companies for breaches of the Act. The ANC-led government, through measures in the Competition Act, generated more than 5 billion in special funds to promote small business, local suppliers, and entry of black farmers into the economic mainstream. The Competition Commission is a statutory body constituted in terms of the Competition Act number 89 of 1998. The Commission is empowered by the Competition Act to investigate, control, and evaluate restrictive business practices, abuse of dominant positions, and measures in order to achieve equity and efficiency in the South African economy. I thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you. DA?
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The DA is deeply concerned about the appalling and inhumane conditions in Embalenhle governing Mbeki municipality. While the local ANC politicians fight factional battles, deteriorating service delivery in this neglected community since 2011 has resulted in raw sewage flowing in the streets. This has affected the health of residents, with people contracting diarrhea and other sewage-related diseases. Members of the Nhlapo family in Extension 12, for example, received no help from the municipality even though sewage was flooding their yard. Illegal dumping is a real problem because the municipality has not collected refuse, which is then simply dumped along the roadside. Sports fields and parks are now becoming dumping sites, and sports clubs have abandoned their home grounds due to uncut grass and unmaintained facilities. The Flo Daniel Soccer Stadium is in ruins thanks to criminal neglect by this municipality. This shows all the marks of an uncaring and irresponsible ANC local government that puts its own narrow political interest above the communities they are supposed to serve. A DA-led administration will make sure dysfunctional and corrupt local municipalities are held accountable for their toxic rule, and that the delivery of quality, reliable services for all the people is prioritized. I thank you.
Thank you. EFF. Ngibonge sihlalo. Ngithi kunenkinga lapha kwamaphumulo kunomgwaqo osuka phezulu kwamaphumulo enkantolo uyoshona phansi wedlule eDlakathi. Lo mgwaqo lo waya uDeputy Minister waka Transport lo nokhona. Ngamreportela ngalo wenza ubulungiswa waya khona wawolibona lo mgwaqo inkinga ekhona waze bahamba no CEO uhlabisa. Bese bakhipha ngisho iadvice ukuthi yini okufanele mabayenze. Bathathe imali lena khona imali lapha engango 2 billion le ebekelwe ukuthi bakukhona izinto eziphuthumayo bakwazi kulungisa. Kuyimanje njengoba ngikhuluma nawe umhlonishwa lapho ngaphambili. Lela bridge abantu kufanele babawelele ngaphesheya bethola imithwalo bakwazi. Ingane eziye esikoleni ziyakhumula. Igama la bridge isemshana. Kuyimanje nje engikuhlungu kunakho konke. Angiyazi ukuthi inkinga yabantu basemakhaya iyolungiswa nini. Lo mgwaqo unesikhathi eside. Kuno 4 billion omunye okhona la ithena mangabe wathi ukuhlabisa ukhathele ukutshela umhlonishwa ulokhuzana umxoli isikhawunda ngoba bamtshela ukuthi athathe le mali ayisebenzise bese bamnikeza advice lutho akafuna ukuyenza le yanto.
Siyabonga ma.
Ngicela ukuthi uminister lo ngoba angikhulumi ngongekho engonyameni umgwaqo wakhona umaphoti wonke.
Siyabonga isikhathi sakho siphelile ma.
Akodwa usiqedelani ngiza nezindaba enjena bakithi.
Siyabonga.
Awuke ngicabangene umphakathi bakithi.
ANC. ANC.
Thank you, Chair. The ANC welcomes the life imprisonment imposed on a Johannesburg taxi driver who was captured on CCTV when he shot and killed a Durban businessman, execution style, at a petrol station. Kidesh Ramjetan was shot dead in August 2018 in a hit at his petrol station in Rosebery, south of Durban. Footage of his murder was trending on social media. His killer, Ayanda Shezi, appeared in the Durban Regional Court on Friday, where he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Shezi of Ulundi in Northern KZN told the court that he was paid 15,000 to kill Ramjatan. The ANC believes that even if he was a first-time offender, Shezi still deserves the minimum sentence imposed on him. These contract-style killings are a heinous crime and a cause for concern in our country. We applaud the law enforcement agency for speedily ensuring that the case reaches finality and that the family may finally find closure on the matter. We are of the view that
very much.
a strong...
Your time is expired. Thank you. IFP.
Thank you, Chairperson. One of the key threats to global security today is climate change. Continued growth in emissions of greenhouse gases has caused abnormal and extreme weather conditions as we have seen recently. The heat waves, the droughts, and the catastrophic floods in some parts of the country. These events are no longer abstract future predictions, but they are taking place now, today, all around the globe. In the fast-changing international landscape where countries are facing unprecedented challenges, the need for collaboration has never been greater. The need to take advantage of the collective wisdom of humankind in formulating workable solutions to climate change is real. Taiwan has made significant progress in limiting greenhouse gas emissions, recycling and reusing resources, despite being so technologically advanced. In 2017, Taiwan resource recovery rate was 52.5%, a ratio surpassed only by Germany and Austria. Taiwan is committed to being part of the solution and is willing to share its knowledge and experience in environmental management, disaster prevention and warning systems, energy efficiency, enhancement technology, and the application of innovative technology. This in spite of the fact that it has long been disregarded and isolated from the United Nations. The IFP called for the inclusion of Taiwan into the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. Climate change is a global challenge requiring a global response. I thank you.
Thank you. UGM?
Thank you very much, House Chair. Kwezinsuku zidlulileyo bekhe ndanenhlanganiso kunye nabahlali basemqanduli ngakumbi kanye pha eNgcanasi. Inye into eyingxaki phana ile isisambonono kumntu wonke waseMzantsi Afrika. Kuqala yintswelangqesho, okwesibini yintlupheko. Okwesithathu kufumanisa ukuthi kwadolophu le yasemqanduli ayinazo nee-public toilets kuphandle. Abantu kuyanyanzeleka ukuthi bozithuma endle kodwa basedolophini neenkomo. Okwesithathu into yokuba ingxaki nento yokuba nakwezi dolophana zilapha ziyingqungile umqanduli ufumanisa abantu abanawo nalo kanonkala amanzi ukusela bayazibonela kuba lo rhulumente ulibele kudlala amakhasi ndaweni uzisa inkonzo ebantwini. Abanye okwesithathu into yoba bahleli nelindle ngoba nje benithetha apha kwibudget nisithi nizawulungisela inye ilindle bahleli nelindle phaa abantu eliyagqabuka kudala elingakhange lenziwe. But eyona nto ibuhlungu, Minister, Deputy Minister and Vicerity, is the fact that students who fail trial exams are not allowed to write exams at the end of the year in many parts of the province, which we find very unacceptable and would like government to respond to this issue. Thina ke bantu bayaziyo ukuthi indlela yokulawula injani, sizamthatha la masipala emveni uba simthathile simlawule ngendlela sise inkonzo ebantwini. Siqiniseke futhi uba obubusela bubangela ukuthi ezi nkonzo zingayi ebantwini buye bazokwazi
Thokoze mhlonishwa, isikhathi sakho siphelile. ANC.
Thank you, House Chair.
Thanks, House Chair. The ANC, the African National Congress, is disturbed by the incident where a staff member of the Princehof School for the Visual Impaired was attacked and robbed by a group of men inside the school premises on Wednesday, 7 November 2018. The victim, aged 36 years old, was on her way to the school kitchen to prepare breakfast for the learners when she was confronted by 3 unknown males wielding a pair of scissors and a knife. The criminals robbed the victim of her cell phone but could not get hold of the keys to the kitchen they demanded. Preliminary investigation indicates that suspect gained entry into the school through the palisades fence where a block was removed from the wall. We condemn the attack on women and those vulnerable in society. We appreciate the fact that officials from the psycho-social support team had been dispatched to the school to render counseling services and support to all affected staff. We call upon the police to investigate the matter and bring the perpetrators to book. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. ACDP.
Thank you, House Chair. The ACDP welcomes the announcement by the Transnet Board that it eventually intends recovering excess monies paid to manufacturers and advisors in the ill-fated 1064 locomotive contracts. Board Chairperson Popo Molefu has disclosed that the recovery forms part of recovering the escalating costs when the transaction grew from an original estimate of 54 billion to an excessive amount. While the Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee focused mainly on Eskom during its oversight inquiry, evidence of gross corruption has surfaced. For example, the Gupta leaks show how Gupta-related individuals influenced the locomotive process and entered kickback agreements totaling 5.3 billion rand with Chinese manufacturers. This allegedly pocketing 10 million rand from each 50 million rand locomotive that Transnet bought. The ACDP believes that funds irregularly spent as a result of the escalating costs and fruitless procurement must be recovered. Directors can and must be held personally responsible for the financial losses in terms of the PFMA and the Companies Act. They should also be declared delinquent directors in terms of Section 162 of the Companies Act, as well as facing criminal prosecution. I thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The African National Congress congratulates the Department of International Relations and Cooperation for hosting a successful 18th Indian Ocean Rim Association ORA meeting of the Council of Ministers, which was held in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal on the 2nd November 2018. The theme was Uniting the Peoples of Africa, Asia, Australia, and the Middle East through enhanced cooperation for peace, stability, and sustainable development. The Republic of South Africa is the current ORA chair. One of the outcomes of the 18th Indian Ocean Rim Association meeting was a special declaration in honor of President Nelson Mandela, who is also one of the founders of the association. This led to the establishment of the ORA Nelson Mandela Be the Legacy internship program, expected to be officially launched in July 2019. This initiative aims at empowering and capacitating young people of ORA with work experience in their fields of study. This year's meeting marks Madiba's birth centenary, hence the special declaration to pay tribute to this global icon. I thank you.
Thank you. GA.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Attacks, threats, and attempts to bribe the Auditor General's audit teams have become prevalent in numerous provinces. It is clear that the corrupt and those involved in grand theft against the people of South Africa are literally fighting the rigorous work done by the Office of the Auditor General. The AG is a Chapter 9 institution that is central to the functioning of our state and essential if our country is to reach its developmental goals. The Auditor General Act does not currently include penalties for those who obstruct the functioning of the entity's work. Compare this to the Public Protector Act, which makes it an offence to attack the integrity of the Public Protector. We therefore propose that the Auditor General Act be amended to make interference with the functioning of the AG's teams, including acts such as bribery and violence, crimes against the state. The DA will fight corruption in all its forms, as we know that it steals from the poor and robs people of opportunity. To this end, under a DA-led government, officials and politicians found guilty of corruption will face a minimum sentence of 15 years imprisonment. The money of the people must be spent on the people.
Thank you. EFF.
Ngibonge sihlalo. Ngithi angiqedele lapha kuminister. Nasenqamango njalo umgwaqo uyabheka emthatha iAlice kanjalo ngase-airport. Mhlonishwa lapho ngaphambili kunendawo lapha eWard 53 eSemawoti. Lapha kunabantu abaphatha imikhonto nobhushu kanye nezinduku abazibiza ngezinsizwa noma ombombela. Labantu bashisa imizi yabantu. Okubuhlungu ukuthi manga bangena izingxabano zabantu bekhiphe abantu ezindlini bayaqhekeza bakhiphe izimpahla zabantu eminyango bengekho bayesatshwa basebenzisana nekhansela lendawo namaphoyisa uqobo ayabesaba. Leli qaqabala lihlukumeza umphakathi kangangokuthi uma ke uwahlangana nabo ebusuku sewufile. Siyacela umhlonishwa uNdosi alusukumele lolu daba, kumele baboshwe ngoba lento abayenza ayikho emthethweni. Umphakathi waseNandi usenkingeni. Mangabe ngikhuluma kahle nje lezi insizwa zazivele zikhona kudala. Zavalwa ngakho lokuthi beyibulala abantu. eClermont bezikhona, enanda lokweClip bezikhona ehostel. Emawoti zikhona angazi umsebenzi wazo yini. Mabehlangana nabaya kushaya. And lando angifuni ithathwe as a joke ngoba ihlukumeza umphakathi awusakhululekile. Ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga. ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The Competition Act has achieved a lot since it was brought into operation in October 1998. Over the 20-year period, the competition authorities have registered significant successes in the fight against cartels, abuse of market dominance, and protection of public interests during the megas. The authorities imposed more than 8 billion in penalties on companies for breaches of the Act. The ANC-led government, through measures in the Competition Act, generated more than 5 billion in special funds to promote small business, local suppliers, and the entry of black farmers into the economic mainstream. The Competition Commission is a statutory body constituted in the terms of the Competition Act number 89 of 1998. The Commission is empowered by the Competition Act to investigate, control, and evaluate restrictive business practice, abuse of the dominant position and megas in order to achieve equity and efficiency in the South African economy. I thank you.
Thank you. PAC. ANC.
The expanded public works program is critical government initiative which contributes in a great deal towards proving a safety and to millions of South Africans who have socio-economic challenges. The ANC believe the increment of 92 rand 31 cent wage rate from 88 rand to the EPWP participant will assist in the mitigation the effect of poverty facing our people. This revised minimum wage referred to the wage rate per day and per task performed across all EPWP sector in all spheres of government. The EPWP minimum wage increase annually and in line with the inflation rate with the effect from the 1st November 2018. All public bodies are therefore required to ensure that the wage are adjusted accordingly. The increased EPWP minimum wage is compulsory for all the public bodies implementing the EPWP and should be adhered as determined by the EPWP ministerial determination. The African National Congress is of the view that this effort will steadily continue to improve the socio-economic condition of poor South Africans participating in the program. I thank you.
Thank you. GA.
House Chair, South Africa's foreign policy is supposedly underpinned by the protection of human rights. However, the response by Minister Sisulu on the recent arrest of two esteemed journalists, Mutoki Momo and Angela Quintal, is in violation of state policy. Despite the journalists having a legitimate letter of invitation from the Media Council of Tanzania and valid visas, their passports and electronic devices were seized. They were denied access to both the lawyer and the South African embassy officials and held in custody for several hours on the basis that they were security risks. While the journalists praised the embassy officials for ensuring their safe passage home, the minister's response on the incident in choosing to side with the fabricated story from the Tanzanian government is indeed puzzling. It would appear that journalists and persons from the LGBTI community live in a climate of fear and intimidation. A governor in Tanzania has called for a crackdown on gay people and even established a surveillance squad to identify and persecute homosexual persons based on their social media profiles and internet footprints.
Thank you.
It is shameful that the minister chooses to flirt and side with the government of
I'm going to switch
Tanzania.
off your mic. ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson.
Sorry, Chairperson. I thought you were calling upon AIC when JJ wouldn't read his statement.
No,
Because this wa-
AIC is not on this list today. You know you have rotations, agreement on rotation.
But it was ANC.
Yes,
Why?
because the PAC was not in,
I
Babu.
should have checked that.
I can't give you the slot. I'm sorry, it's for PAC and it was not in. Thank you. ANC?
Ke a leboga, modulasetulo. The African National Congress welcomes Northwest Department of Rural Environment and Agricultural Development for setting aside 46 million to support smallholder farmers as planting season gets underway in the province. About 812 smallholder farmers would be supported with crop production inputs to cultivate 14,000 hectares to be planted during the 2018-19 planting season. Over the years, the department has been supporting farmers in a variety of ways to produce more food through the provision of crop production inputs, access to storage facilities, and technical advice, among other measures. The last cropping season of 2017-18, a target of 13,000 hectares was exceeded by 1,628 hectares to attain overall 14,628 hectares planted. This was achieved despite late rains and early frost encountered in the province, as the Northwest farmers were able to produce an excess of 19,016 tons. The ANC is encouraged by the department's commitment to support small farmers so that they use the land productively to guarantee food security and eradicate hunger, reduce poverty. I thank you.
Thank you. That, honorable members, concludes the member states. Are there any ministerial responses? I'll start with you, Honorable Deputy Minister Surti.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I will respond to two of the statements. The first is with regard to a comment by my colleague in relation to supplementary examination. The matric examination is made up of two parts. One is the class-based assessment, of which the supplementary examination forms part, and the other is the final examination, which is being written now. There is nothing in our policy that prevents a learner who has failed the trial examination to write the final examination. So the principal has probably culled the learners in order to get a better result. So I assure the honorable colleague that it's inconsistent with policy, and indeed I will take the matter up to pursue it further. With regard to the issue of security, we've made huge strides in relation to this particularly important area to ensure that we create a safe learning and teaching environment in our schools. So most of the schools in the country are now fenced. We've established subcommittees for safety and security, provided, as the honorable member has said, psychosocial support wherever necessary. And certainly any attack on our teachers or learners or personnel is not acceptable, particularly those who are most vulnerable. In addition, Honorable Chair, and that's my last point, we have an agreement, a protocol agreement with the South African Police Service, which has adopted schools in the police station in the locality out there, and more than 15,800 schools, as we speak right now, have a relationship with the nearest police station. This is to enhance security in our schools. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister Chikunga.
Ngiyabonga mphathisihlalo. Ngifuna ukuphendula kwi-statement esenziwe uMam Khawula. Kuyiqiniso ukuthi saya emaphumulo emgaqweni ayeuripothile la ehousing ukuthi uyakhiwa kodwa kukhona ongahambi kahle. Safika sawubona umgwaqo omuhle kodwa i-engine umuntu obewakhe contractor wayengachanelanga kahle amanzi, so abebuya ngene emgaqweni nomhlabathi wawungeke uphileke kahle vele. Sase sabhala i-report isayiswa kwi-province. I-feedback esayithola ukuthi i-contractor yabuyela yalungisa. Na uMam Khawula ukhuluma nge-bridge ethi umshana. Ngiyacela again Mam Khawula ukuthi noma ngabe yimuphi umgwaqo okhuluma ngawo uthathe inamba yomgwaqo kwenza kube lula kungaba uD100 or uR bani bani noma uN bani bani kwenza kube lula mangabe unikeze besikwazi ukuthi uyakuphi otherwise angazi ukuthi umshana bridge ukuphi noma ngabe bengifuna ukukhuluma ngayo kwi-province kwi-province noma umasipala wakhona so yilokho esikucelayo kwi-issue yokubulawa kwabantu basemaTexini ne-life sentence enikiwe siyayi-welcome kakhulu leyo sicabanga ukuthi le court isenda i-message ephilile yokuthi abantu ababulalayo baplana ukubulala kufanele bathole isigwebo sokuyohlala ejele impilo yabo yonke ngakho-ke siyayi-welcome kakhulu yona leyo leyo eyinsizwa ayirayisayo umama ukhawule iyadinga vele siyilalele sithumela amaphoyisa i-crime intelligence so that laba bantu babanjwe baboshwe because uma ngabe behlukumeza abantu emakhaya abo ikhaya kwami la ngicabanga ukuthi la ngicasha khona ngithola ukuphumula so mangabe kuba khona umuntu ozongena ekhaya angilimaze angibulale kukwaziwe kufanele baboshwe labo bantu ngiyavuma ngiyabonga
Siyabonga. Deputy Minister Masuku.
Siyabonga Chair. Funa kuphendula nanga umbuto lolo buteng honorable member competition commission. The competition commission ilo isare ngreferee so njengoba sifuna minotho ukuthi kubuye la sibuka ama investment senda yonke lento le president ayendaba kunalabo baphila ngayo lento leya ngokusihambisa amabhizinisi yabo lapha kule mabhizinisi kunalabo bamagovu baphinde futhi babethi igebengu lapha ngekhasi bese uma bafuna kwenda iprofit bese tu bagijimise lalabanye ukuthi baphume ngokubeka mhlambe iprice bayibekele phasi ukuthi uphume la kuleli business or lesinye isikhathi baphinde futhi bete kulabantu kithi laba la sithengayo baphakamise le price bese tulu kakhulu so lo referee lo nguye lo lobuka ukuthi ngibani lo phula umthetho bese uyamfayina ke ke lo referee lo unjengeliphoyisa futhi aphinde futhi uma sayibukile lento uthatha le case le bese uniketa futhi lento lebathi tribunal bese yamshushisa lo muntu mayiqedza lapho imfine bese ithatha le mali lesikhuluma ngayo nje la kule competition bese imikisa ukuthi ku-develop labantu lalaba ababe affected ngaleyo ndlela leyo so le competition commission kungakho sicinisa lo mthetho nyalo njengoba uphase kuleli parliament ukuthi ube nemandla kakhulu njengoba nibonile nasekuqala siphinde sabeka umthetho ukuthi bantu abashushiswe baphinde baboshwe labanye siphinde futhi sasinyalo ke kufuna lenza abaye public interest iphakamise lokuthi sikwazi ukuthi minister khona ukukhomba ukuthi la ngathi sicela ukuthi bantu bahlukumetheke kakhulu thathani imali ninikede bantu ukuthi babe netinsika nalapho futhi kunalabanye labafuna ukujoina ama-company la kanti bathumele story tengaphandle
Siyabonga isikhathi siphelile mhlonishwa siyabonga mhlonishwa Ngqongqoshe Phando
sorry mhlonishwa wami ngithi angilungise lento kaminister uminister uyawuthanda umsebenzi wakho abakaze babuye olungiswa lo mgwaqo singaya naye manje
okay ma
bamnikeza i-wrong report ngiyabonga
okay mara ngicela ukuthi uminister uyavuma ukuthi ukhulumisane naye ungaya lapha kuye uyokulalela kahle kakhulu kuba ngcono nani ikhuluma nobabili siyabonga Minister Phando.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think we welcome the attention drawn to the dismal state of services in the Govan Beki municipality that was referred to by the Honourable Member from the DA. The ANC is committed to improving services in local government, hence the initiatives undertaken by the Minister of Kokda to ensure that from municipality to municipality, we are ensuring that we fix up sewerage equipment and ensure that roads are repaired and that proper services are provided to communities. So we will communicate the concern that has been raised. We also would ask honourable members, as we do constituency work, to encourage our communities to play a greater role in ensuring we clean up our communities, that we join together to ensure that we don't dump refuse where residential areas are located, and that we actually educate around matters of recycling and other ways of protecting our environment. In that regard, we also would agree with our colleague from the IFP, the Honorable Singh, that indeed the matters of climate change require attention. Hence, government has adopted a climate change strategy where we are looking at adaptation as well as measures that we can take in order to ensure that we reduce emissions in South Africa, that we introduce more and more green technologies and begin to ameliorate the serious damage that is being done in many sectors with respect to matters of climate change. We would believe we learn from all communities, and we would say that China, given our one China policy as a country, has moved a great deal in addressing matters of climate change, and in fact has become one of the largest users of renewable energy in the world.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Mhlonishwa Nkwinti.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable members have raised again the question of water and sanitation. We acknowledge that there are serious challenges in this regard. The problem, partly, perhaps mainly, is a systemic one. Ukwakha amadami luxanduva lwe-national government. Ukususa amanzi kodwa wasezindlwini umasipalati. And then ukulungisa ilindle endlwini umsebenzi wahulumende wasePitoli. Ngoku xa umasipalati engenawo amandla kuba kwingxaki. Sidibanisene ke ngoku bendisempumalanga kule veki ipheleyo. NgoLwesihlanu sidibene pasavana no-Human Settlements no-Cocta phansi ko-Premier nomasipalati. Senze iteam enye edibanisa uRand Water nguye opha. Ozokwazi ujonga empumalanga. Kule ngapha ephele bendiseLimpopo njalo ke sendivele eNorthwest senza lento ngoba ndifuna nam andifuni mna ukuzibeka ecaleni ndithi hayi reticulation ayoyami. Ndifuna ukusidibanisa yonke lento ngoba ndifuna nami uba khona ndiqiniseke ukuba iyenzeka. Ukususwa kwamanzi emadamini azezindlwini. Nasegiyani le ngxakinye singenelele ke ndivuse ikhona i-construction unit by departmentini. Inayo ne-manufacturing plant e-Northern Cape yokwenza yonke le mibhobho yamanzi ndivuselele yona ke ngoku. Sizawusebenzisa yona, asizoqesha kampani, sizawusebenzisa yona, sikhawulezise senze lento. Enkosi.
Siyabulela, Mhlonishwa. I have one slot left. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, honorable members. That concludes the ministerial responses. We now get to notices of motion. The
House
ANC.
Chair, through your wonderful indulgence, are our rules permitting Honorable Pando to take the last spot?
No, ma. Thank you. ANC.
Thanks, House Chair. I move on behalf of ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates dramatically reducing levels of gender-based violence and ultimately eradicate it. I thank you.
Thank you. DA?
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, at the next sitting of this House, I shall move that this House debates the readiness of Statistics South Africa to conduct the upcoming national census. I so move.
Thank you. EFF?
I move on behalf of EFF that in the next sitting, the House discuss the plight of workers at the National Department of Health at the Civitas building, who are very frustrated with the manner in which management of the department is dealing with the non-compliance of the building. I so move.
Thank you. ANC?
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates ensuring that patients diagnosed with TB are notified, treated, and defaulters should be followed up to prevent the spread of the country's leading killer disease. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. I hereby give notice on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party that I shall move at the next sitting of this House that this House debates the ever-deepening crisis at the SABC, which is putting at risk the viability of the public broadcaster and the future of its employees. I so move.
Thank you. NFP.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. In the next sitting of this House, I shall move on behalf of the NFP that this House debates the importance of cooperatives movement in job creation and the economic empowerment of the working class and the poor. I so move.
Thank you. ANC.
Mangibonge mhlali ngaphambili. Ngiphakama egameni likaKhongolose ukuthi lendlu mbuso ngokulandelayo mayidikide ukubaluleka kophenyo lobuchwebesha nokujula bobuciko emphakathini nabangasese negalelo emnothweni wesizwe ngiyaphakamisa.
Sithokoze. UDM.
Nibongeniseke House Chair siphendule lemibuzo siphethe nathi kula nomgogwana wethu. Ndiphakama apha phansi kwegama le-United Democratic Movement sicela ukuthi le ndlu xa iphinde ihlala izishukuxe umbaba ukunyuka kwezinga lolwaphulo-mthetho kunye nobuntswelaboya kwizikolo zethu eMzantsi Afrika nendlela zokuthi siyilungise lo mba. I so move.
Sithokoze. FF plus. DA.
Geachte voorzitter, hiermee versoek ek dat die huis met die volgende sitting debatteer hoeveel waarde die hoofkantoor van Alex Core Coöperatief in Johannesburg met 'n jaarlikse begroting van R40 miljoen oor die laaste 6 jaar bygedra het tot Alexander Baai, die Richtersveld gemeenskap, die PSJV, Alex Core self en die Namakwaland gemeenskap. Ek stel so voor.
Dankie. EFF.
Ngokulandelayo lendlu ngifuna ukuyidingide udaba lwasenquthu lwenkosi yakhona uNgobese ekhokhisa abantu besilisa o50 njengoba engasebenzi ufuna kuma wakhe akhokhe lo 50 ithi imali ye-tax kusho ukuthi uma unayingane eziwu5 zokhokha malini lenkosi le ngithi ngempela ikhulunywa indaba yalo nalolu udaba lokuthi makushona imember la ayisiqhamuka sizokusiyangcwatshwa nayo ayingcwatshwe ngesizotha nge-state funeral ngoba abaculi niyabenzela. Ngiyabonga.
Ngiyabonga. ANC.
I move on behalf of the ANC that in the next sitting the House debate the improvement of access quality health service in urban and rural communities. And so
Thank you. Co. ACGP. ANC.
ANC. Thank you, Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates impacts of retrenchments in both the private and public sectors. I so move.
Sithokoze. Babunja isikhathi sakho manje.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move on behalf of AIC that this House in its next meeting debates the steps that should be taken in order to make youth to be interested in the field of agriculture. I so move.
Thank you. Ahang SA. ANC.
Thank you, Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the development and strengthening of local economies, creation of jobs, and promotion of job placements, especially for the youth. I so move.
Thank you. APC, PAC, no. DA?
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of Democratic Alliance. At the next sitting of this House, I shall move that this House debates the severe shortages of medical specialists, particularly in rural public hospitals. I so move.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. Ke tsitsinya mo maemong a African National Congress gore mo kopanong e latelang ya ntlo e buisane ka thotloetso ya puso e siameng, kgololosego, ditshwanelo tsa botho, toka le tshiamiso ya molao mo kontinenteng ya Aforika Borwa. I so move.
Ka leboga. Seo se re fitlhisa bofelong ba morero wa letsatsi. Ntlo e ka emella. Ke a leboga.
Bye, love.